problems. 30 to 40 minutes is a safe sort of additional journey time to get through. Coming out of Petermaritzburg, there's a right lane closure on the N3 down towards Market Road to watch for. And if you're getting an early sort of getaway into Easter ahead of some construction being lifted over the weekend, you will find some delays along the N2 corridor, Riversdale through to Mossel Bay. Along the N2, there's about 3 sets of stop-go controls there, and plenty of stop-goes on the N1 through the Northern Cape between Richmond, Hanover and Colesberg. Multiple work zones on that section. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 minutes after 6. Good morning. Welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. It's Wednesday. Feels a little bit like Thursday because tomorrow is Thursday, which will feel a little bit like Friday, if you know what I mean, going into the sort of long weekend. I think a lot of people just feeling that, you need to take a moment and just relax after what's really been a frenetic beginning to the year. And if you think the beginning was frenetic, I think wait for the next 3 months, frankly, as we go into electoral season. I'm afraid I need to start with a little bit of news about our show, SAFM Sunrise, and just to sort of tell you about a change that we are making, not through my choice, I must just say, not through management's choice either, but Ray Machlaka has taken a decision that he needs to do some other things. So he, I'm afraid, won't be with us from next week, and in fact tomorrow will be his last day with us, and we'll pay tribute to Ray tomorrow as well, just to say goodbye properly. But I thought I'd just give you some advance warning that Ray Machlaka will no longer be with us from next week. And Ray, we are going to miss you, and I'll say a lot more nice things about you when you actually go tomorrow. But, we're going to miss you, Ray, because you've been with us all the way through the pandemic. And do stanza Zelma all nodding as I sort of talk about that, because that's when Ray joined us. I'll never forget in March 2020 when he actually joined us and what that was like. And so, I think it's always sad when someone leaves a radio team, even if you don't see them every day. It's always sad. But it's also, and teams work very closely together, and they're part of the routine, and they're part of this and that, and they're sort of part of your breakfast cereal or your toast or your tea or whatever it is. But, obviously there will, of course, be business news in the future as well. So let me just tell you about that, and we'll sort of talk to Ray in a little while. He'll talk to us in about 20 minutes, and then we'll say goodbye to him properly tomorrow. Lots going on, of course, about our politics, and the big headline news, still really a very important story. The ANC yesterday losing its bid to stop the registration of MK, and so the Electoral Court ruling, a unanimous ruling, that in fact MK was properly registered and that the Electoral Commission did the right thing. I'll come to sort of MK and the ANC in just a moment, but let me just say this. I think it was an important ruling for the Electoral Committee, for the Electoral Commission rather, because it shows that they did the right thing. If they had lost now, I think that would have been a little bit of a dent in their sort of credibility or legitimacy ahead of the election. So I think that is important. The ANC also saying that it accepts the ruling, and this is also important, that you have a governing party that loses a case against a rival, led by their former leader, and accepts the ruling. I think that's also important. And then today starts the trademark infringement case, which is basically the ANC saying the MK can't use the name Mkhonto weSizwe, can't use the trademark. You might have seen the sort of image that MK is using. And that will start today, and we'll have more conversations around all of that. In the middle of all of this, the IEC, which were just ferociously busy yesterday, releasing the lists of party candidates so parties have time to object. And they have until, I think, close of business today, 5 o'clock, to object. And number one on the MK list is Jacob Zuma. Everyone's talking about these lists. The ANC list we kind of knew because it had leaked. The DA list we sort of knew. They had announced it earlier. But Jacob Zuma is number one on the MK list. And as you know, my understanding of the law is that he would be ineligible to be in Parliament. He would also be ineligible to be president, by the way, because he's been president for 9 years. But that's a separate thing. The reason I say this is that he essentially has been just jailed or sentenced to a term in prison of more than a year, and that sentencing happened less than 5 years ago. And that's why you can't go into Parliament or even be in a council if you were actually jailed for more than a year less than 5 years ago. That's the sort of shorthand version of it. I suspect that there will be cases and applications and views and objections and all sorts of things around that. So very interesting to see how that plays out. In the EFF, you may remember we spoke a little bit about Naledi Chirwa, who had to sort of make that apology. She comes in on the EFF list at number 200, so I think she's not coming back to the National Assembly. Carl Niehaus is much higher. He's number 27. Viljoen. Looks like he will be in the National Assembly. I see that Dalian Porfa also quite high on the EFF list. I don't know if he'll take the spot, though. We know, of course, that he's very busy with his law practice. There are 42 candidates, by the way, who are on the lists of more than one party. I find that amazing. How does that happen? That this happens. Apparently, it happens quite often. But how on earth do you end up, with 42 candidates on the lists of more than one party? Duduzane Zuma is number one on the All Game Changers. That's the name of his political party. And so he's up against his father, who's running for MK, and against his twin Duduzile, who's also running for MK. I wonder what they talk about, do you think? But also All Game Changers, very sort of curious name. Anyway, let's see how it all plays out. But yeah, a lot going on in our politics, and we'll talk all about it as we go through the morning. I'll be very interested in your views, by the way. Does the candidate list change anything for you or not? Big story around higher education, and the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Bleden Zamande, talking about this yesterday. The deregistration of these colleges, the Lyceum College, Damlin City Campus, and how it all works. And a couple of the other colleges sort of saying, look, we're happy to take students. Well, of course they are. But still, we've got to make this process as easy as possible. It must be the most awful thing to start studying and then be told your college is shutting down, or it's not going to be there, or you're not going to get the qualification that you thought you would get. And it's happened before, actually, with some of the older universities, where suddenly a course that people are doing is deregistered by Health Professions Council or someone. So it must be really very difficult. And also, I think when you're at that age, most of the people doing that, studying there are young people. You sort of make friends there, and suddenly everything's disrupted. So it can't be very easy for them. I've been thinking a bit about them. There's a strange story that's been developing, and it's really around what you can say and what you can't say. And Basetsana Khumalo was very involved in this, but it's about Romeo Khumalo and the author, Jackie Pomotswe, who has now been sentenced to 2 years in house arrest for criminal defamation, criminal injuria, and contempt. And what happened was she sent out a series of tweets about people that had no basis in fact. There was no way she could justify these tweets. And then she sort of, when was told to stop, wrote a book about it instead. And now she has basically facing the legal consequences. And the reason I bring this up is that, because I don't normally talk about gossip, is that it's an important lesson that you can't just make up nonsense and publish it. You can't just do that. And I know people do. Not just here, but in other countries too. But you can't do that. And in fact, there can be consequences for doing it. And I think it's just important to sort of remember that. And then also, the Scopa chair, Mkaleko Klengwes, with the IFP. Yesterday, there was a big oversight visit about the PRASA railway lines. And he said that the people on the board of PRASA who allowed there to be no security for the railway lines during the COVID pandemic and the lockdown should actually be declared delinquent directors, and money should be reclaimed from them, because all of those railways were just, stolen. People moved their shacks onto them, etc. And he's saying there should be consequences for that. Good to hear from you this morning. 086 000 2032, SMS 41391, tweet SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Nice to have you along. Good morning. It's 6:15.
Yanga have a massive mission to dish out orders in Dar es Salaam against 2016 champions. However, Masandawana believe in their ability to succeed anywhere on African soil. This is the first leg quarter-final encounter of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. Young Africans versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday, 30 March at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Rising costs, housing prices, fuel price hikes, diminished consumer buying power, inflation. It's a jungle out there. Who do you trust when the only certainty is uncertainty? You need an investment team who considers it all to give you the advantage. At Prescient Investment Management, we analyze more than 120 million indicators daily, because the biggest returns are found in the smallest insights. Discover the future of investing at prescient.co.za. Prescient Investment Management is a registered FSP. Experience the best of South Africa at the Rancho 2024. Get ready for non-stop thrills, heli flips, and crazy drifts to get everyone going. Bring the little ones into the enchanting world of the Kids Fun Zone, or immerse yourself in a prehistoric adventure at the new Dino Expo. It's not just fun for you, it's Monate for everyone. 28 March to 1 April, Johannesburg Expo Center, Nasrec. Grab your tickets now at rancho.co.za.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, it's been months. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thank you, Stephen. It feels good to be back. It has been months.
Wait until the second early morning.
Yeah.
What's coming up today? Obviously, still more court cases.
Definitely. It is the battle for the trademark of Mkhonto Wesizwe that will be heard at the Durban High Court today. And it follows the MK's victory yesterday over the registration as a party. And we know that the ANC is alleging that the MK party's use of the name and logo infringes on its trademark, and they are claiming ownership over the elements, including those of its disbanded military wing.
It's very interesting to see how it goes. What else is coming up?
We also will be taking forward the announcement by the Higher Education Minister, Dr. Bladen Nzimande, that is to deregister the Educor institutions such as Demlin, Lyceum, as well as City Varsity, looking at the impact it will have on the affected students as well as their parents who have invested, into their kids. Another case that we will be looking at is that the state is expected to make its submissions on why it's opposing bail in the AKA matter, and this is where the state will begin to lay out their case in the Durban Magistrates Court as to why the 5 men that's accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes should not be granted bail. We know that AKA and his friend Tebelo were killed in Durban last year, and the police announced the arrest last month, saying an elaborate operation was put in place to kill AKA. In Gauteng, the SACP, we know, is also demanding a full investigation into allegations of racism or racist and derogatory remarks, that is by the DA leader John Steenhuisen. And today the Young Communist League of South Africa will be joining the South African Communist Party as they picket at the Constitutional Hill against racist remarks that was apparently made by Steenhuisen against the Gauteng prevention wardens, and the comments did spark some public outrage. And just lastly, Stephen, the Gauteng office of the South African Human Rights Commission will also be hosting its annual briefing that will give updates on matters that it has investigated and has been featured lately. It also includes the Hammanskraal cholera matter, infrastructure challenges and problems at Gauteng schools as well as hospitals, among others.
And Musa, thank you very much indeed. Welcome back. 19 minutes now after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, partly cloudy, isolated thundershowers 15 and 26. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, isolated thundershowers 15 and 25. Vereeniging, partly cloudy, isolated thundershowers 15 and 26. Bombela, cloudy, morning drizzle as well as isolated showers, thundershowers in the afternoon 15 and 26. Polokwane, cloudy in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, 15 and 28. Mahikeng, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 15 and 27. Vryburg, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thundershowers 16 and 29. Mangaung, cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 14 and 26. Kimberley, cloudy, scattered showers, thundershowers 15 and 24. Excuse me. Uppington, partly cloudy, isolated showers and thundershowers 17 and 24. Cape Town, partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, a moderate to fresh southeasterly 16 and 24. George, cloudy, isolated showers, rain, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, a light and variable wind 17 and 22. Gqeberha, cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers, a light to moderate southwesterly 18 and 21. East London, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy, scattered showers, thundershowers from the late afternoon, a light southwesterly wind 19 and 22. eThekwini, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers, a moderate to fresh northeasterly 21 and 29. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy, a moderate to fresh northerly wind 21 and 30. And Pietermaritzburg, morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy, becoming cloudy, scattered showers and thundershowers 16 and 29.
The Blues are looking for nothing but victory to cement a decent top half position.
Mudryk takes over. Mudryk's through. Mudryk round the goalkeeper. Oh, it's fantastic.
But the Clarets need 4 points to step out of the uncomfortable zone.
Come on, Jakob. Jakob Brun Larsen scores. Perfect penalty. Keeper went the right way. Too much on it.
This is of the Premier League. Witness the superb contest between Chelsea FC and Burnley FC on Saturday, 30 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
So, you've reached a T-junction on the road. You can go left or right. Within 32 days after receiving an auto traffic fine, you can pay the fine and get a 50% discount. Pay in installments, nominate the driver responsible, make a representation, or elect to be tried in court. To learn more about the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act and your rights and options as a motorist, go to rtia.co.za. Change the way South Africa drives. RTIA, giving you peace of mind on the road.
There are new and exciting moves for the SABC2 Familiar. From the 4th of March, the life-changing game show Deal or No Deal with Katlego Mabwe officially moves to SABC2 weekdays at 6:30 p.m. It's where you belong.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
22 after 6, it's now being reported that in Israel, a meeting of the country's war cabinet has been cancelled amid what appears to be a growing split within the coalition that supports the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu has said he's determined to continue with the ground offensive in Gaza and in Rafah, and that's despite the US abstaining in the United Nations Security Council resolution this week that said there must be an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Religious parties that support Netanyahu in Israel are furious at plans to conscript a group of people, often described as ultra-Orthodox Jews, into the military. They've been excluded from conscription for many years on religious grounds and now facing calls and legal rulings to be included in the Israeli Defense Force. Stephen Grootes is the head of the Africa-Russia project at the South African Institute of International Affairs and expert on Israeli politics. Stephen, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Stephen.
Outside of Israel, looking from where I see it in South Africa, I suppose, there's a growing sense of a country that's isolated. I think the sense might be that it's refusing to listen to the rest of the world. The rest of the world continues largely its condemnation of what's happening in Gaza. What's happening inside Israel? I imagine it might feel very different.
Well, I think the war is definitely taking its toll. There's a lot of soldiers that are being killed, and I think it's felt very deeply. The cabinet, as you outlined in your intro, there are strains on the cabinet and the coalition that is, ruling Israel. It's always had coalition governments right from 1948, and as we will discover perhaps after our elections, you've got to keep everybody in your coalition happy. And there are disparate forces within the coalition and different kinds of parties that are placing many different sorts of demands on Netanyahu and his ability to keep that government in place. And opinion polls right from the start of the war have shown Likud, Netanyahu's party, as really declining in support, and he's trying to keep this cabinet together in order to continue to rule, I guess.
I mean, the issue of the conscription of ultra-Orthodox Jewish people outside of Israel, it seems like quite a sort of strange fight to have at this time, but I presume it's quite important inside Israel.
It is very important. In fact, this exemption goes right back to 1948, when so many Torah scholars, so many religious people had been killed in the Holocaust that David Ben-Gurion made a decision early on that if you went to study in a yeshiva, a Jewish seminary, you would be exempted. So this is a 75-year-old policy. But there is resentment among more secular Israelis that why do young religious men, ultra-Orthodox men, get exempted when ordinary Israelis have to spend 3 years in the army and then many years in camps and being called up as reservists and so on. And so it has been a point of friction, and it's just another strain that is being placed on the war cabinet. Because there is legislation in the pipes to change this, and there are definitely forces that oppose this change. And so, as you say, it's probably not what Netanyahu needs now, but I think the fact that so many people are in the Israeli Defense Forces at the moment and being put in harm's way in the Gaza operation really increases that resentment, to say, why should religious ultra-Orthodox be exempted when our sons and daughters have to go to the army?
We've been told by other analysts about this, that if Netanyahu's government fell, it might, that in some ways, and the sort of argument against him is that he's continuing with the operation in Gaza just to stay in power. If the cabinet splits and he fell, would that really stop the Israeli operation in Gaza?
Difficult to say. I mean, I think while Netanyahu's own support has plummeted, support for the war is still quite high. So I don't know if it's a government led by Yoav Gallant or Benny Gantz, both previously senior IDF commanders. I'm not sure that it would stop the war. I think that there is broad support in the Israeli public for getting rid of Hamas, whatever it takes. And as we've seen, it takes a lot. They are not easy to dislodge, given their embeddedness in the Gaza population.
Stephen Grootes, thank you very much indeed. Head of the Africa-Russia project at the South African Institute of International Affairs, as you can hear, an expert on Israeli politics. 28 after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
What would Michael Jackson call it? Thriller.
Thriller indeed. Well, yes, it was quite a match. 6 goals in total, 3-3 the draw, and the Desert Foxes and Bafana putting on a feast of attacking football. Bafana led twice in that match last night, but allowed the Foxes to claw their way back, and they were denied what could have been a morale-boosting win ahead of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Nigeria and Zimbabwe in June. Let's recap some of that excitement.
Nice little cut inside here from the Algerians. Once again, that draw level, it looks like it's Benzia who's pulled a hamstring in the course of getting Algeria level again. And once again, the fans find their voice. 6 goals in this one, 20 minutes remaining, 3-3. And Petkovic knows there's still work to be done, but I thought Benzia pulled a hamstring.
What a game.
Absolutely.
What a game and what a goal there. The equalizer from Benzia.
Now, Australia and Iraq, they cruise into the next stage of the Asian qualifying for the 2026 World Cup, while Son Heung-min, South Korea, also on the brink of joining them after beating Thailand. Rugby now, the Lions assistant coach, Ricardo Lopesher, has insisted the team will need to be at their best again in their upcoming fixture against the Ospreys. Not only did the Lions become the first South African team to beat Connacht on their home turf this past weekend, but they did it with just 14 men. And of course, another win on the road will certainly enhance the Lions' reputation as a formidable touring team.
I think for us coming in, it's a short turnaround, and to change the whole thing or try to chuck the baby with the water out is not going to work for us. So, but slowly but surely we're trying to install new ideas. Unfortunately, when you're not getting results, you're under pressure and you have to go back to all right, what worked for us. And so we try to simplify things a little bit now. Play to our strengths, play to our banker plays, try and hold on to stuff that's working for us.
And finally, cricket. Sune Lewis expects a tough encounter when the Proteas women take on Sri Lanka in the first of 3 T20 internationals at Willamore Park in Benoni today. The series is the last of the South African team's season and comes at a good time as it will help them with preparations for the T20 World Cup in Bangladesh, which starts in September. More on these and other stories at the top of the hour on Sunrise. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. You with SAFM leading the conversation. We'll have more for you on the deregistration of these colleges in the next half hour. There's no load shedding at 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic that the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. DA Chief Whip Siviwe Hwahube says there's no reason for the motion of no confidence brought against the National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula not to be heard this week or latest next week. This after the party launched the motion of no confidence following Mapisa-Nqakula's announcement that she was taking special leave. And data released by Stats SA shows employment in the formal sector for the fourth quarter fell by 1.8% or nearly 200,000 jobs. The decline was mainly due to fewer jobs in community services, construction, business services, manufacturing and mining. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The N1 coming out of Pretoria on your way to Joburg now being held up by the stationary truck. It's stuck pretty much in the middle of the highway coming in from the left. It's about the second lane. That's always a problem. So from the Brockfontein interchange down through Old Joburg Road on your way to Samrand towards that obstruction is very slow. The R21 on your way to the airport just starting to slow up. If you're leaving Pretoria, a reminder the roadworks and lane closures in place approaching the Olifantsfontein Road exit at Clayville, and that traffic will continue just to get heavier and busier. Good idea to put an extra 30 minutes on your trip to get through there as a minimum during peak hour. If you arrive at the airport early, well, that's no problem. If you arrive late, it is a problem. Durban this morning looking generally okay. If you're heading out from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, there's a right lane closure just coming down to Market Road, so we'll keep an eye on that one for you today. Cape Town, a crash on the M7, Jakes Kerwell Drive at Klipfontein Road, so arriving up from Mitchell's Plain in through that Philippi area, that's quite slow. And pretty busy this morning across all lanes. The M2 between the airport and Mowbray Main Road. If you're not already in it, you will be just joining a slow-moving queue. And the N1, similar backlogs coming through from the Plattekloof Hill all the way through to Sable Road at Century City, jammed up towards that off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
You'll miss us when you leave us, Ray Machlaka. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi there, Stephen.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly up. The investor focus is on the US economy and labor market, with economic growth and jobs data expected this week. This data is important because it will give clues about the outlook for interest rates. And for now, investors still expect 3 interest rate cuts this year in the US. And before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones and S&P futures are each up 0.3%. In Asian markets, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 0.7%. China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.5%, and Japan's Nikkei is the only market in Asian Pacific markets that is up. It is up 1.1%. And in the currency market, there is some weakness in the dollar to the rand. The local currency is 18.99.
And then job losses and formal employment. So it's building and mining that have brought it down.
Yeah, the number of formal sector jobs fell by 194,000 or 1.8% in the last 3 months of 2023. This is according to Statistics South Africa, and the construction, manufacturing and mining sectors were some industries that contributed to a decline in formal sector employment. The loss of formal sector employment opportunities indicates that these sectors are struggling and not supportive of jobs growth. The mining sector is suffering from low commodity prices, and the construction and manufacturing sectors are also facing weak activity, and this is making it difficult for these sectors to create new jobs.
And then the sort of drought or the heat in El Nino could have a big impact on maize prices.
Yeah, maize meal is a staple food on which many South Africans depend on. The price of maize meal may increase by up to 12% because of the effect of crop losses caused by drought conditions across South Africa and the world, that is. Yesterday, the Crops Estimate Committee released its latest summer grain crop estimates for South Africa. The harvest of a white maize that is mostly used for maize meal for human consumption was expected to be 25% down on the last year, and the harvest of yellow maize could decline by 20%, and this might result in higher maize prices.
Ray McClark, thank you very much indeed. Ray will, yes, be back in an hour's time. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Refresh morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
This is really important. It looks like there might be a resumption of peace talks for Sudan. They'll be happening in Saudi Arabia, and that conflict is so big there.
Stephen, remember that next month it will be 1 year since that conflict in the North Sudan. And now who's the mediator here, or who's the facilitator? It appears that the special envoy for Sudan, Tom Perillo from the US, is pushing for this resolution of the conflict in Sudan. Now he's saying that you will need to have these peace talks in Jeddah because you need to bring United Arab Emirates, you need to bring Egypt, the East Africa Bloc, IGAD, as well as the African Union. And they are looking at after the holy month of Ramadan, and also next month they are looking at the Paris donor conference to assist North Sudan, even because there are issues of famine, there are issues of sexual violence that are happening in that region when there's a conflict going on. But it appears also both leaders from the Rapid Support Force and the Sudanese army, they're not willing, Stephen, to engage. But we hope that these Jeddah peace talks, they will bring some fruitful engagement.
And then in Senegal, the president-elect, they've got a full plate, eh?
Stephen has a full plate already now that economic reform is one of his challenges, the anti-corruption in Senegal that he has to deal with, but also the issue around promoting national companies that can also benefit from the natural resources of Senegal. What he, in his campaign, was calling that he wants to move away from economic enslavement of Senegal. And also he was pushing the oil and the gas contracts, how they should benefit the state and introduce a new currency. I don't know how will he manage that, Stephen, because he's just sailing you into office. You will still need an institutional memory on dealing with the new currency and the old currency.
And then in Togo, lawmakers there have adopted a new constitution. They're moving from a presidential system to a parliamentary system.
Stephen, I'm a bit worried how they will implement it, because next month Togo is going for the parliamentary elections on the 20th of April. Now, if you are amending your constitution and you are raising the issue that the president will no longer be elected by the people of Togo, it will be by the parliament. This has changed, Stephen, and they are looking at the 6-year term. They are also pushing that there should be another position that will manage the affairs of government, what you'll call the business leader in parliament. In South Africa is the vice president normally, but in Togo, they want to have the president of the council of ministers who will handle that. And also they are looking, as I said, Stephen, that their parliamentary elections, when they happen, probably they might bring them into force as they have done a constitutional amendment.
And then in Cameroon, supporters of President Paul Biya want him to contest next year's elections there. He's 91 now.
Since 1982, by the way, and he formed his party in 1985 on the 24th of March. So his party was celebrating 39 years. And on Sunday, they called him that he must accept the nomination of being a presidential candidate for 2025. But also the opposition lamenting that he has been in power for too long, for almost 4 decades, that Paul Biya has also pushed corruption in that country, no political activities. What has happened in the south of Cameroon, it has been many challenges with the south and the north not agreeing on many issues. But his party, Stephen, they say he must stand for power, and he's one of the oldest leaders in the world, and second longest serving after the president of Equatorial Guinea. So this shows that we won't have a change of power in Africa, Stephen, if your members of the party says they want to bring you back at the age of 91.
And then in our archives, this day, 27th of March 1995, was a strange day, eh?
It was a strange day and it was historic. 10 months in the office, the former President Nelson Mandela had to dismiss the late former wife, Winnie Mandela, from government, Stephen. And it was around the issues of defying presidential orders. Remember, Winnie Mandela was the Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture. So he went on a film festival and then coming back also, there were allegations of corruption against her. Now, the presidency had to look of Mandela's presidency during that time, Stephen, had to now take action by removing her in cabinet. And also Bantolomisa, remember there were two former deputy ministers who were removed during the presidency of Nelson Mandela between 1994 and 1999. Asante Sana SG, as was still leading the conversation, SAFM, observing the Human Rights Month.
Ras Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. 19 minutes to 7.
Yanga have a massive mission to dish out orders in Dar es Salaam against 2016 champions. However, Masandawana believe in their ability to succeed anywhere on African soil. This is the first leg quarter-final encounter of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. Young Africans versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday 30 March at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
When South Africans think security, they think Trinidor. With 6 months interest-free financing and over 54 franchises around the country, you can always find the security product and price that's right for you. Visit trinidor.co.za or call 0861 Trinidor today. Trinidor, the ultimate crime barrier.
In a world where voices are often silenced, democracy stands as a beacon of hope. For decades, we've upheld the values of freedom, equality, and justice. From the streets to the ballot box, every voice matters. As we honor the legacy of democracy, let's remember that it's not just a system, it's a promise of empowerment.
Tribute to democracy, celebrating our shared legacy.
Join us as we celebrate 30 years of our shared legacy of democracy on SABC. Together, we shape the future. SABC, everywhere, for everyone, always.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
17 minutes to 7. Good morning. You know the number 086 000 2032. Obviously, big issues going on in our politics at the moment. But yesterday, the Higher Education Minister, Bladen Zimande, is saying he expects the higher education colleges that are being deregistered to help their students transfer to other institutions. Damlin, Lyceum, the city campus institutions, they're being deregistered because they haven't submitted their financial statements for the last 2 years. The minister says around 13,000 students are affected. John Foster Pedley is Dean and Director at the Henley Business School. John, good morning. Thanks for your time this morning.
Morning, Stephen.
How difficult is it for a student to move from one college to another? I mean, transferring can't be that easy.
No, you've got to feel for them, Stephen. It's a shocker. It's really hard for them to quickly segue into a different university and a different course. The universities themselves have the rights to refuse if they don't fit the syllabus they're moving into, and also the demand is quite high. And then there's the issue of finances, because they've spent their money on this with these colleges, and judging from the financial situation, there's no real guarantee that the money is going to be there for them to be refunded. That's my big concern. So it's a very difficult situation for them. It's tragic. It really is sad.
I mean, the Higher Education Department says they will try and help, and I believe that they will. But if the money's gone, the money's gone, and this is the problem, isn't it?
It is, and private higher education institutions have to submit these returns to make sure that they're financially regulated properly, but to protect all the students. And it's not a random act. It's not that they won't have got any warning. They will have done. Actually, the department's pretty good on this. They give you plenty of warnings. They try to not close people down. It's a last resort. And if they have closed them down, it's because there is real problems there. So what we have to do now is kind of come together as an education sector and see what we can do to help these people. But at one point I'd like like to make, it doesn't mean that the private higher education sector itself is in trouble. In fact, you could argue it's a cleaning out of some of the old, less efficient organizations. You've got problems in the public sector with Fort Hare, UCTs have problems, UNISA have as well. And what's happening in the private is you've got some really good people moving into the sector who are really well regulated. I mean, we are obviously, I have to say that, we're quadruple accredited, but then you've got Stadio, you've got Advotech, you've got Vega and other places, other institutions which are really very well regulated.
Is part of it that some people are able to sort of manage education better in the 21st century? Maybe I should say post-pandemic. And I'm talking about, the sort of mixture of hybrid, online, some face-to-face, I presume. I think if I were a student, I'd still prefer face-to-face, but maybe that's just me. And some people have not really quite understood how to survive in the brave new world.
What happens when you're educating and you've got an education institution, if you don't watch out, it becomes like a super tanker, great big juggernaut that you can't really change easily with academics and tenure, etc. And it's very hard to change. So what is happening is that this new world of education means that newer, more valuable offerings are on the market, sometimes cheaper, and with new types of academics and new sorts of material and learning methods. So you're quite right. The sector is evolving rapidly. And if you're not in an organization that's prepared yourself for that, and if you're not run by people who understand and love education, then very quickly you start to see it just as a profit-making business. And you can't think of education like that because it really is a service and a vocation.
I've always been expecting that a big international company will develop an international qualification that will then be offered online anywhere in the world. And if online education works, and I realize the jury's still a bit out on that, John, I would have thought that, our operations here, operations everywhere would be at risk to a big international company putting a lot of money into some kind of online qualification that would be recognized anyway.
Well, I think that's happening already, to be honest. We have an MBA that's international, got an international qualification that's done partly online and partly face-to-face. But what happens is, internationally, you wonder why that hasn't happened, because the very great resources of international organizations, they have the syllabi, they have the top lecturers, they can get the type of delivery that people need that's flexible, and you can just do a degree that's done anywhere in the world. Why not? And that's a major threat to our own institutions, which have been shown not to be able to deliver. I mean, the minister himself said that of 100 school starters in South Africa, only 4 get a degree within the 6 years of leaving school, and it's 55 in Finland and 50 in the UK. And it's not because these people aren't smart. They really are. South Africans have a lot of talent. It's the talent development space that's a vacuum. And unless we get education to people by any means possible, any means at all, how are we going to grow the economy? So I'm all in favor of changing the sector and revving it up to get education to the people who seriously deserve it and can deliver.
John Foster Pedley, thank you. Dean and Director at the Henley Business School, 12 minutes to 7.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
In Northwest, a school principal and a circuit director in the basic education department there have been suspended amid claims of selling teachers' posts. You'll know this has happened over the years. George Temba is the provincial secretary for the South African Democratic Teachers Union in Northwest. George, good morning.
Good morning.
We've heard about cases like this before. What happened in this case?
Yeah, look, we were taken aback by the organization when we learned from a statement released by the department, but subsequent to that, the TV program, wherein there were allegations of selling of posts immediately with suspension, proportional suspension of a school principal and a circuit manager in a chain circuit around Dr. Kenneth Town, the district in the Northwest province.
Do you believe this is happening regularly in Northwest?
Look, we cannot necessarily confirm that for now. However, we can equally not take these allegations for granted, because you will know that in some years back, there's always been some newspaper reports around this particular incident. But like I'm saying, we cannot, on this particular instance in particular, confirm with certainty that indeed this is what has transpired.
Okay, I mean, you would condemn this as SATU, right?
Sorry?
As SATU, you would condemn this, selling teachers' posts?
No, definitely. We are clear as an organization that the selling of posts is a corruption on its own, as we have said in our statement. It denies those with an opportunity, for upward mobility, those who might not have necessarily have connections, nor even money to pay, an opportunity to showcase their talent. So we are 100% against this form of, incident, and that is why we've also reiterated the stance that we've taken in our 2022 National General Council, especially around this particular matter.
Okay.
And also, yes.
So, sorry to interrupt you, George. I mean, from time to time there are claims that SATU is very important in determining who gets jobs. If any of your members were involved in selling posts, you would remove them, I presume.
But definitely, we will obviously, if there is, as we have made in our statement, we have made that particular call. Obviously, when there will be, substantial evidence of our members involved, obviously we'll have to find a way of how we are able to nip that on the bud, because we don't want to be associated ourselves as an organization, because we don't even have a mandate, that says people must go out there and sell posts in the name of our organization. We are anti-corruption. We don't want our name to be dragged in the mud because we don't have that particular mandate, as I've said.
George Temba, thank you. Provincial Secretary for the South African Democratic Teachers Union in Northwest, 8 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're coming out of Pretoria this morning on the way to Joburg, it's the stationary truck we've been warning about that's stuck there between Old Joburg Road and Samrand Road. The traffic's back through Brockfontein and marching back towards John Foster. That's heavy this morning. Also, the R21 delay starting to build as you come down in towards Clayville. If you're on your way to the airport, play it safe. Give yourself an extra 30 minutes to get through that queue. If you get through and you sort of arrive 25 minutes before your flight's better than arriving 25 minutes after the flight's left. So just play that one safe and make sure you're aware of it morning and afternoon peak times, and sometimes during the day as well, depending on the number of lanes that are closed. It really is a heavy backlog. N1 North, other side of Joburg, quite slow this morning, coming up through Deep Cliff Interchange for a slow trip down towards connections through to Uncle Charlie's and the Mike 1. Durban, another breakdown on the N2 South going between Umgena and Spaghetti Junction. Yesterday, we literally saw one breakdown after the other all day long on that section. A lot of these vehicles breaking down, simply running out of fuel. And, of course, when they break down in that section, it's roadwork, so you down an extra lane and things really back up. M7 towards the Bluff still being held, starting to queue from the N2 down to Bel Air and Wakesley. Bel Air Road up past Chief Albert Latuli into the roadworks, very slow going. Cape Town, the N2 inbound, it's busy this morning from the airport through to Hospital Bend territory. The N1 from Plattercliff Hill backlogging through to Sable Road. This time yesterday, Marine Drive was a mission getting through Sunset Beach due to faulty lights. All the lights seem to be working this morning. Marine Drive's okay, but if you're heading the other way out of Tableview, Bloberg Road, an unusual backlog through to Kuberg Road. That's heading down to the refinery side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at insurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45 from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
Help it out. Took the family up to go and see the snow and I got stuck. The service was quick, even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from our insurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Did you know that government has set a minimum amount for employers to pay their employees and workers?
In 2018, the National Minimum Wage Act 09 of 2018 was passed in South Africa. It makes it compulsory for all employers to pay employees and workers a minimum wage. In 2024, the national minimum wage for all workers, including domestics, farm and forestry workers, is 27 Rand 58 cents per hour. The minimum wage for workers on the Expanded Public Works Program, EPWP, is 15 Rand 16 cents. If your employer is not paying you the national minimum wage, please contact a labour inspector at a labour centre near you. The Department of Employment and Labour, working for you.
ES Tunis plan to disallow their visitors any breathing moment, but ASEC Mimosas remain extremely hungry for maximum points on the road. The North takes on the West. This is the first leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis versus ASEC Mimosas on Saturday 30 March at 11 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
4 minutes to 7, the time. You know the number 086 000 2032. Pumi on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Pumi, hi. You heard that conversation about the selling of teaching posts.
Good morning, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Pumi?
I am good. I am also calling regarding the sale of posts to PL1 educators as well as the SMT posts to non-deserving and incompetent people. They get the posts being incompetent because they have paid for those posts. And Stephen, this has led to high staff turnover. The schools have collapsed. And there is a decline in the matric results. What about learners, the small children who deserve to get the intervention programs? Because we have different kinds of children. We have elderly children who need the special programs. Who will design those programs if the principal, the head of the school, is incompetent? And Stephen, let me tell you, this is happening on a regular basis. And teachers who deserve to get promoted in terms of merit are under a lot of stress because they don't get promoted. Only the comrades, I will put it that way,
sure,
who get those promotions. And nothing has been done about the task team. If I can recall, there was the task team that was set up by Professor Volmink as well as the Education Minister, Engin Zerga. It was swept under the carpet. That report was all over the newspapers like City Press and Sunday Times.
I remember it.
But
Pumi, can I ask, how do you know that this is still happening? I mean, you say you know that it's happening. You're calling from KZN. I have to ask, how do you know it's happening?
Stephen, I work in one of the schools.
Oh gosh!
And the way it is done, you cannot even notice.
So I mean, you're saying that the people who end up teaching children shouldn't be there,
especially those who are in management, who are running the schools.
Sure. Is SATU involved? I mean, they deny it.
It is, because most of, even in their meetings, when the bulletin is released, they are told that the post belong to SATU.
Sure. Yeah, Pumi, I mean.
And Stephen, another thing, if you are the SATU branch chair or you occupy the position at the BEC or the regional level, obviously, being incompetent as you are given the school. And if they are employed, they are not employed to work as teachers. They are employed to secure the membership in the school, to see to it that no other union breed in the school, to torture other educators who belong to the other unions. I won't mention, we have many teacher unions, but the way they dominate, Stephen.
Okay, and Pumi, you work in one of these schools, so that's how you say you know this.
I work in one of the schools, and it has happened on numerous occasions. I have witnessed it, and that is why, Stephen, there are many problems in the schools, because those leaders cannot lead effectively. They have no competence.
Pumi, thank you. On the line from KwaZulu-Natal. I mean, Pumi's making serious claims, and she's saying that she knows this because she's actually in one of the schools. We'll still see if maybe National Satu wants a right of reply in some way. But we have had these claims consistently. I think the problem has been sort of proof in all of it. But Pumi, thank you for telling us that. All right, a lot more to come in the next little while. More on yesterday's electoral court ruling, and then the issue of trademark. I'm not going to get completely lost in trademark law between the ANC and MK. I'm much more interested in the question of whether voters see MK as part of the ANC or not. You were there, SFM, leading the conversation, 7 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, MK party members optimistic ahead of ANC court challenge, and employment in the formal sector drops. Good morning. We start off with election news. Members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic that the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. The ANC is claiming that these are part of its heritage and intellectual property. MK head of elections in KwaZulu-Natal, Musa Mkhize.
It's only trademark that belong to Umkhonto weSizwe party. Nothing else, nobody else. We don't know anything else. We never stole it from anybody else. People need to focus for the legal. It's left for them to steal. Yep. For the legal, it's left for them to steal before the 29th of May. Unfortunately, we'll be ready to pay the bills, to pay for the expenditure that was not authorized, that they're still doing now, to take over what is left for the people of this country.
DA Chief Wapsiviwe Gwagube says there is no reason for the motion of no confidence brought against the National Assembly Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, not to be heard this week or latest next week. This after the party launched the motion of no confidence following Mapisa-Nqakula's announcement that she was taking special leave. The acting National Assembly Speaker, Lichesa Tsenodi, accepted the motion yesterday. Gwagube says the 12 counts of alleged corruption and money laundering levelled against Mapisa-Nqakula render her incapable and unsuited to be in high office.
While Parliament may be going into a constituency period from Thursday, but Parliament remains competent to fulfil its functions until May. And that is when officially the term of office for the 6th Parliament will end. And so there's absolutely no reason why we cannot consider such a motion.
Boston City Campus CEO Ari Katz says students who have been affected by the deregistration of the 4 EduCore institutions can still migrate to other institutions through the process of credit accumulation, transfer and recognition of prior learning. This after the Department of Higher Education cancelled the registrations of Demlin City Varsity, Lyceum Colleges and Ikesa City Campus after they failed to submit their annual financial certificates and reports for 2021 and 2022. The institutions will embark on a phase-out program until next year, while City Varsity will be deregistered immediately. Katz elaborates.
They need to gather as much evidence as possible that they've got to prove what they have achieved to date, so that when they present themselves for credit accumulation and recognition of prior learning, they're able to prove that I've actually achieved the following. And then the institution will have to articulate what they're presenting against the institution's own outcomes and the credit and syllabi, etc., to determine what is capable of providing credit for or recognition of prior learning.
The Free State Department of Health says Ngwate local municipality must be held accountable for the lack of water supply at its clinics in Parys. Community members have called on SABC News to complain about poor hygiene and unbearable conditions at the Tumahole clinic. The Provincial Health Department has confirmed that Tumahole, Tabang and Tusanong clinics are the worst affected. The department spokesperson Mondli Mvambi says the clinics were previously supplied with water by water tankers. However, the prevention of these trucks from entering the township has exacerbated the water challenges. He says the district management team of Fezile Dabik supports the clinics with infection control measures such as frequent disinfection and transportation of water from Parys Hospital. Data released by Stats SA shows employment in the formal sector for the fourth quarter fell by 1.8% or nearly 200,000 jobs. The decline was mainly due to fewer jobs in community services, construction, business services, manufacturing and mining. However, there were increases in the trade, transport, mining and electricity. Salaries paid to employees increased in the fourth quarter by almost 1% due to higher earnings in trade, manufacturing and construction, amongst others. Senior economist at FNB, Koketso Mano.
Many of these jobs that were lost were in community services, which would have been in line with Phase 4 of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, having come to an end in the third quarter of 2023. However, it is still important to note that we do have 98,000 jobs that have been added since the end of 2022. And also with SA's latest sample or updated sample, we're seeing that employment in the formal sectors of the economy has fully recovered from the pandemic effect.
Further afield, and finally, the U.S. Coast Guard says 6 people still missing after a container ship brought down the Francis Scott Key Bridge in the city of Baltimore are now presumed dead. The BBC's Will Vernon reports.
In that news conference earlier, the authorities spoke of the desperately difficult conditions in which rescuers were operating. The water here is very deep, it is bitterly cold, the current is fast, and there's poor visibility too. And added to that, the water is full of jagged metal from the collapsed bridge, so an extremely challenging environment.
Recapping the top story, members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic that the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you in your Sunrise Sports headlines. Bafana fight to a thrilling draw against Algeria in a 6-goal spectacle, while in cricket the Proteas women have set their sights on victory in the T20 series against Sri Lanka starting today. Stay tuned, details coming up just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
This queue coming out of Pretoria on the N1 this morning is extremely heavy. It's across all lanes. It's thick all the way from John Foster through Brockfontein down to this stationary truck, pretty much in the middle of the carriageway just before Samrand. If you use Route 1, Pretoria through to Joburg, make sure you've got a ton of extra time to get through that. The R21 continues to build into the roadworks at Clayville. You need extra time to get through that to maintain your flight connections. And the N1 North stays heavy on the run through Deepcliff down towards the N12 connection down to Uncle Charlie's. The backlog of the traffic back to about the Golden Highway exit. So if you do that every day, that'll give you a sort of reference to how bad it is. Durban's N2 queuing heavily through the M7 up through Spaghetti Junction and on towards the roadworks up by Westwood Mall. Bloberg Road coming out of Tableview this morning, unusually slowed down to Coburg Road. Marine Drive looks good. It was caught yesterday with some lights, but none of that this morning. It looks okay. And the N7, fairly heavy backlogs. She's passing Langa. Delay setting up to Beaufort Circle in Epping. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7, good morning. You with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Good to have you along with us this Wednesday morning. As I say, feels a little bit like a Thursday because tomorrow will feel a little bit like a Friday because of the short week going into the Easter long weekend. If you are travelling, please be careful. I know lots of people are at the moment. More to come on the moment on the Electoral Commission, the ruling yesterday in favour of the Electoral Commission and MK and against the ANC. We'll get a view on that. Also, we'll talk about the ANC's application to stop MK from using the sort of logo of MK, which I suppose really does have its roots, depending on how you see it, in Umkhonto weSizwe, which I'd always sort of seen as part of the ANC back to the armed struggle. We'll get more on that for you as well. Coming up from 8:30, your mediated conversation, we're looking at this idea, is there a difference in the way that leadership works in the private sector and in the sort of political or government sector, depending on how you see it? Because it's just been interesting. It's been one of the sort of themes of the last few weeks in our conversations is the difference between the way things happen in these sectors when claims are made against leaders. We'll look at that. You know the number 086 000 2032. It's 9 after 7.
Buying a new TV? You'll need a paid-up TV license. Need to check your balance? No sweat at all. You just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 for fast, effective balance inquiries. Secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
So, you've reached a T-junction on the road. You can go left or right. Within 32 days after receiving an RTO traffic fine, you can pay the fine and get a 50% discount. Pay in installments, nominate the driver responsible, make a representation, or elect to be tried in court. To learn more about the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act and your rights and options as a motorist, go to rtia.co.za. Change the way South Africa drives. RTIA, giving you peace of mind on the road.
The Blues are looking for nothing but victory to cement a decent top half position.
Mudryk takes over. Mudryk's through. Mudryk round the goalkeeper. Oh, it's fantastic.
But the Clarets need full points to step out of the uncomfortable zone.
Come on, Jakob. Jakob Brun-Larsen scores. Perfect penalty. Keeper went the right way. Too much on it.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest between Chelsea FC and Burnley FC on Saturday 30 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
11 after 7, good morning. Wednesday morning, will the Electoral Court now confirming that former President Jacob Zuma's political party, Umkhonto weSizwe, will be part of the elections. It ruled against the ANC's application, which claimed MK had been incorrectly registered or wrongly registered as a political party. The ANC had argued the Electoral Commission had not properly followed the law and that MK should not be allowed to take part in these elections. But MK and the IEC had both argued that all of the right procedures had been followed. In the end, judges ruled the ANC had no case and that MK and the Electoral Commission were both correct. Lulu White is the CEO of the Elections Management and Consulting Agency. Lulu, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Steve?
Good, thanks. This was a case that could have had huge implications. What message do you think the Electoral Court has sent to political parties with a judgment like this?
The Electoral Court's message is very clear that they're going to be kept out of the spectacle of political parties during these elections. I think we have seen a culture in South Africa with a lot of our South African politicians and political parties, where if they are not happy with a particular political parties, we see them being dragged in court. And the message that the Electoral Court seems to have given this time around is that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that electoral democracy and the integrity of electoral processes is actually protected. I think that's the message. That's the takeaway for me from this whole process.
It's interesting because we've seen people, and I mean, this happens, I'm sure, in other democracies, where people use all sorts of legal maneuvers and cases and applications to try and stop other parties or to limit them in some way. I think people see it as lawfare, as part of the rules of the game. It's never going to stop, is it?
No, definitely. Look, you are correct to say that we have seen it. Yes, we've seen it in the country. I mean, even as recently as 10 days ago, we also saw it with the Senegalese elections as well, where the president had actually kept the opposition in jail and only released them 10 days before an election. So you can see that this is mainly political maneuvering, and unfortunately it does not give off the impression that it's often the bigger political parties or big opposition parties that actually like doing things like that, where they actually subject people to a court process, and it really then detracts them from doing whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing, whether it is service delivery or whatever course that it's required. It does appear to be a trend that seems to be occurring, and it's not only in South Africa, it's not only unique to South Africa. We've seen it also in Zimbabwe. How many times have we heard of opposition parties or opposition leaders being arrested, particularly when it's election time? Swaziland also is known very much for things like that. So it is a political game that many politicians actually play in the continent, where instead of facing their opponents in the polls, they actually have them arrested or detracted and taken to jail in whatever way before they actually have that election.
Is it important that the ANC said yesterday it accepts the outcome of the Electoral Court? It's the governing party accepting a ruling that went against them.
I think it's very important that they accept, but at the same time, I mean, what other option did they have? Because when you hear the argument and when you hear the judgment, it's quite clear that the IEC was not found wanting in this particular case. I think it was important that they accept the decision, but also because Steve, I think they don't have the time. The luxury of time is really not on their side as far as this election is concerned. If they have to take the matter to the Supreme Court of Appeal, that's another time that they should be dedicating to their campaigning. Why spend so much time chasing storms, as far as I'm concerned? Because it's quite clear that the registration is going to stand. People have a right to associate. People have a right to register Mkhonto weSizwe and to even vote for Mkhonto weSizwe if that's what they want to do. So if you go to the Supreme Court of Appeal, what are you trying to say? That those people must be disenfranchised because you're not happy as the governing party? So I think it's a very important decision that they took, that they must accept it, but I also think they really didn't have much of a choice given the timelines.
Is it also, everyone's been talking about how important this is for MK and the ANC, and it is important for them. But for the Electoral Commission, the IEC, if they had lost this, what would that have done to their credibility ahead of the election?
It would have really spiraled their credibility out of control, but also it would have placed in question many other registrations. I think, we must not take it away from the fact that this is something that the IEC has done, from 1994 post-election, when party registration regulations became existent, where when a political party registers, they give political parties opportunities to be able to correct their application. And yes, sometimes those parties are rejected and those parties then resubmit their applications. Now, it would have then cast into doubt all other applications that have been handled in that particular manner. And now, if that is the case, what would it have done to all other political parties? Because you can't disenfranchise one political party and leave all the others that are registered with the same principle.
Lulu White, thank you. CEO of the Elections Management and Consulting Agency. I really appreciate the time. 17 after 7, you with SFM. Well, after that result yesterday, today the High Court is hearing the ANC's application against Mkhonto weSizwe for using its name and logo. As I understand it, this case will probably be decided on trademark law. It could hinge on whether the ANC has registered the name and the trademark Mkhonto weSizwe. From what I can see, the ANC has not actually registered that name as a trademark. Professor Susan Boyson is a political analyst. Professor Boyson, good morning to you. Okay, the lawyers will argue about trademarks and registrations and things like that. But in the minds of voters, is MK part of the ANC? I mean, could you have the phrase Mkhonto weSizwe without the phrase African National Congress first?
Yeah, fascinating issues that are to be decided, Stephen. Yes, I think in the minds of the voters, the two are not the same. They recognize it as a different entity, and it's already an entity that has contested in by-elections and has done quite well in by-elections. In the minds of the parties, I think, and specifically the MK party, there is a deliberate, provocative and revengeful provocative sentiment, positioning it as a special type. We don't want to overuse this phrase of a special type, but I think here is indeed a special type of opposition party. In the actions of especially former President Zuma, positioning themselves deliberately as opposition party contesting elections within the ANC. And that is where they can inflict most damage. Zuma refraining from resigning and deliberately mobilizing in the heart of the ANC and ANC territory. So it is a type of party that has taken internal politics into the electoral domain. I think in the mind of voters there is a very clear differentiation between the ANC and the MK party. And MK, we know that is indeed so much part of the ANC heritage. But I don't think there is any voter that actually confuses MK, that has been such a crucial part of the ANC armed liberation struggle, and the MK party as we see it today.
Isn't the sort of most important thing about MK? Let me be careful here, but isn't the only thing about MK Jacob Zuma?
I know there is a lot of writing about it, including your own, and it is indeed so. It is so much about Jacob Zuma, but then it is also about more than him, and we can see that in public opinion polls. We know there are so many public opinion polls currently, and some are much better than others. Some have a much smaller margin of errors, and even one like the Mark Data one that came out very recently, and that only has the 1.8% margin of error, and that one is showing the MK party as the biggest party by current polling, by the snapshot in KwaZulu-Natal, and a party that could possibly emerge as the fourth biggest nationally, and in the process it will inflict not just damage, we see it in the polling results, not just damage on the ANC, but also on the IFP, and thus on the multi-party charter group, and also on the IFP and its ability to grow and re-establish itself, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. So, and this speaks to a party that is about more than Jacob Zuma. But then, of course, the third leg of this pre-election battle of registration of MK party, now today the name, logo and the colors issue, and the third one, Jacob Zuma as candidate. The candidate part still has to unfold, and the objections against the candidates will close the end of today. And there is little doubt, we can also read that from an IEC statement released yesterday, little doubt that Jacob Zuma's candidacy will be questioned. And the question is indeed whether the MK party could fall flat if Jacob Zuma as candidate is not allowed to be there.
I mean, and this is where it gets so interesting, because yes, it's about Jacob Zuma. Yes, it's also about more than that, and we can see that from the fact that that MK has submitted a full list of candidates. It clearly has organisation and money, and then on the ground, and again back to KwaZulu-Natal we go, I suppose. The ANC surely will be able to outspend MK and perhaps out-organise MK. Is this now going to be, and we know campaigning works, is this now going to be quite an intense campaigning battle? And it's amazing to me, on top of all of that, that once again, as South Africa, during an election, we're all talking about former President Zuma.
Yeah, I think on the ground, we cannot underestimate how intense that campaigning is going to be. We can also look at how the ANC has managed and countered previous split-off campaigns and projects like Congress of the People, and there was a naming debacle there as well, and which ANC more or less managed, but then they let cope roughly right through those 2009 elections, and then systematically reclaim the ground bit by bit, and contract to a previous comrade to contract to a re-established comrade type of approach. So even from that we can learn, even if there are damages in a current election, then there may still be counter-revenge after the election. But the big important difference this time around is that the ANC 2024 is not nearly as strong, is not nearly as well established in government as it was in 2009. So it hasn't got the same counter-punch power that it had at that stage. And the crucial point here, too, is that MK, if it can sustain its campaign through the possible absence of Jacob Zuma as candidate and as presidential candidate, but everybody knows MK party is not going to win an outright majority and is not going to be the biggest party coming out of the election. So the fact that former President Zuma is unlikely to be a future president is probably not going to weigh that much in this overall battle.
There's maybe another question, which is what happens with MK in Parliament after the election. So yes, there'll be a manifesto. It hasn't, as far as I know, had any kind of elections to structures. As you point out, Jacob Zuma won't be there. Obviously, there will be people who are there. And this is a bit delicate, but I can't see former President Zuma campaigning in 5 years' time.
Exactly. That is just about virtually impossible that he will be. But I think the importance of this party and its revenge on the, let me call it the real ANC, is that it's going to inflict damages in terms of the ANC's results in this election. It can probably force the ANC into a position where previous ANC might have been able to claw its way back either just to 50% or below 50% and a few small top-up parties. That scenario seems to be fading. And ANC is possibly, by current indications, 2 months before the election, is going to be in a position of finding it very hard to negotiate a coalition, to find a coalition partner of appropriate size and ideological compatibility. And that is probably going to be sufficient for the MK party as the revenge it wants to extract from the people in the ANC that had alienated and humiliated Zuma.
Professor Susan Boyson, thank you. Political analyst, really appreciate the time. 26 after 7.
Fly better to your next holiday. Book your flights with Emirates to a holiday in Dubai, London, Istanbul or Paris. Look forward to delicious regionally inspired cuisine. Enjoy free-flowing premium drinks and relax to your favorite movies on the way. Because it's not just about the destination, it's how you get there. This year, fly Emirates. Fly better.
ES Tunis plan to disallow their visitors any breathing moment, but ASEC Mimosas remain extremely hungry for maximum points on the road. The North takes on the West. This is the first leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis versus ASEC Mimosas on Saturday, 30 March at 11 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Goal last night.
Yes, 6 in total. What a display from our very own Themba Zwane. Man, he's in a league of his own. He helped Bafana to, 2 goals last night. Quite a brace from him and shining brightly. Crucial goals for the Bafana team and definitely showcasing his experience and skill on the international stage. Now we'll look ahead where Algeria will be aiming to bounce back in their upcoming FIFA World Cup qualifier against Guinea, while Bafana will hope to build on their performance when they take on Nigeria next. Cricket action today. In the build-up, the exciting T20 series with Sri Lanka, Proteas women captain Laura Wolford has laid out the team's ambitions for the 3-match contest to be held in Benoni, Potchefstroom and East London. The first T20I gets underway at Willamore Park in Benoni tonight from 6 p.m.
Very crucial. We don't have much cricket left as a group before the World Cup, so I think these 3 T20s especially are very important just to try different combinations and to finalise that starting 11 that we'd like to have for the World Cup. Obviously not a series that we're taking lightly at all. I think Sri Lanka have been very good in the past couple of months, beating England as well in the T20 series, so we're definitely going to be looking to start strong on the front foot. So yeah, looking forward to tomorrow.
Staying with cricket, after weeks of confusion, the International Cricket Council has finally confirmed that the matches involving both the South African men's and women's teams at the Africa Games in Ghana did not hold international status. The ICC offered no reason for the clarification, though it's understood Cricket South Africa had demanded an explanation after it had sent a university team to the men's tournament. In the meantime, the Chennai Super Kings thrashed the Gujarat Titans by 63 runs in their IPL match in Chennai. The defending champions, the Super Kings, posted 206 for 6 after being asked to bat first, and the Titans slumping to 143 for 8 in their 20 overs. Rugby, the Springbok women are determined to finish their European tour on a high and deliver a commanding performance when they face the United States of America on Saturday. The test at Ealing Sports Club in London will be the 6th between the two countries. The match will be live streamed on the SA Rugby YouTube channel and starts at 3 p.m. Let's take a listen now to the coach, and that's the Springbok assistant coach, Franzel September.
The game has evolved a lot, and we saw them playing last year at XXV as well. But we feel as well they have a new coach. It's the fourth coach, and we expect physicality. I think that's key for us. We're preparing ourselves that we are up for a battle against USA. We don't see them as a team, as an easy team. They're into the top 10 ranks as well. So.
We'll bring you more sport on Sunrise. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. El Nino and its impact on maize production. That coming up in the next half hour. You're with SAFM leading the conversation. No load shedding. It's 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. The state is expected to argue against the bail application of 5 men accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and his friend Tibelo Tibbs Mutswane were killed in Durban last year. And Boston City Campus CEO Ari Katz says students have been affected by the deregistration of the 4 EduCore institutions can still migrate to other institutions through the process of credit accumulation, transfer and recognition of prior learning. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, some good news now. The stationary truck on the M1 South in Centurion between Old Joburg Road and Stamroad has finally been cleared. Traffic is busy, but it's well off. It's heavier. So just a sort of normal traffic pattern being displayed now as you come through Brockfontein all the way down to a new road. R21, a reminder of the roadworks approaching the Olifantsfontein exit at Clayville. If you're on your way to the airport, that's a heavy queue to work through. And we're just dealing with a crime scene on the N12 coming from Protea Glen up towards El Dorado Park. So between the Klipsred Valley Road and the Golden Highway on your way to Joburg, that's quite a heavy backlog, and there is an impact going down to Protea Glen on the westbound side as well. Leaving Pietermaritzburg, we've been having a pretty good run through the traffic this morning. A little bit of a backlog, Ashburton through to Linfield Park. Apart from that, it looks good as you get into Durban. The N2 North is heavy from the M7 up through the roadworks at Spaghetti Junction. Cape Town's N7 full of traffic today between the N2 Highway past the Lunga and up towards the Viking Way Junction. M5 is heavy from Kenilworth all the way through to the N2. And if you're an M3 user coming in from Steenberg or Tokai through Constantia, Bishop's Court and Newlands, it's a very good clear run through the traffic. No discernible backlogs there. And just a reminder, if you're getting an early start to the Easter break, heading out between Cape Town and Mossel Bay, there's a lot of roadworks underway. They'll probably be lifted for the Easter period, but if you're heading out before Friday, just east of Swellendam and between Riversdale and Mossel Bay around Albertinia, there's some more stop-go sections there. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, morning again. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, in the current trading session, both markets are mostly up. The investor focus is on the U.S. economy and labor market, with economic growth and jobs data expected in the U.S. this week. This data is important because it will give clues about the outlook for interest rates. For now, investors still expect an interest rate cut from July this year. And before the US market opens later today, the US futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each up 0.3%. In Asian markets, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 0.9%. China's Shanghai Composite is down 0.4%, and Japan's Nikkei is up 1.1%. And our local market, the JSE, was up 0.5% yesterday. The shares of technology and telecommunications companies were mostly up.
And then life insurers paid 599 billion rand in claims and benefits last year. It's a huge amount of money.
Indeed, life insurance companies paid out more money in 2023 for tragic life events such as death and disability. They also paid out for significant life stage changes such as retirement. Life insurers paid out 599 billion rand in benefits to policyholders in 2023. That represents a 3.6% increase in benefits paid out in 2023 compared with 2022. These figures are from the Association for Savings and Investment South Africa, or ASISA, which is an organization that represents the insurance industry. ASISA says the insurance industry remains healthy on a financial perspective and is still able to pay out to policyholders when they claim.
And then researchers are warning that cheap cement imports are having really a big impact on the local industry.
Yes, some local cement producers might be forced to close down their factories, putting thousands of jobs at risk. Local cement producers say they are struggling to compete against an influx of cheap cement imports. Research from a firm called Grootes Research found that cement imports increased nearly 20% last year. Cement from Pakistan, China, and Vietnam continues to flood South Africa's market. Grootes Research says South Africa's government continues to provide no protection to local cement producers from imported cement.
Ray McClark, thank you very much indeed. Ray, of course, back tomorrow. Yes, there'll be more business, but more from the business world through the day here on SFM. 24 minutes to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Jill, you're on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Hi, good morning. You heard Pumi's call earlier about teachers buying posts. We spoke to Sato about it in the Northwest. What do you know about it, Jill?
Steve, I'm part of a non-profit organization called Youth Education and Support Trust, and we support students at university level. There are a number of students that have qualified as teachers in KwaZulu-Natal. They cannot get jobs. It's the same story that Pumi said. They go down there and they find that people are paying to be able to get jobs. And these are really well-qualified, good people, and they don't get jobs, and because somebody has been in there and they're paid to get a job. It's shocking, and I don't know how you sort this out. And who actually does go in there and say, no, wait, hold on, there's something really funny going on here? I mean, who's paying the money and who are they paying it to?
There's so many questions, because I know that I'm sure the Basic Education Department will be quite upset by these claims. I mean, is it headmasters? Is it officials? Is it someone else?
I think it's the officials, but I don't know. I don't think it would be the headmasters, but you don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe the headmasters actually select students or select graduates who they want to have in, and then they pay for them to come in. But I don't know what it is, Steve. And it's just, you know, I just think about these schools who've also got so many pupils in a class, and all these well-qualified teachers are not, they're out there. I mean, they go, one of them now works at Kentucky Fried Chicken. No.
Yeah, should be teaching.
It's a real sadness, and I don't know how they're going to sort the problem out. I mean, somebody should be going in there and saying, no, what's going on?
All right, Jill in KwaZulu-Natal, thank you for that. All right, so Jill saying she's seen what she's seen. We've heard Mpumi saying she's seen what she's seen on this. Let's see if we're able to do a little bit more about these claims. If you know more about it as well, I mean, if you've seen it or if you're in a position to sort of deny it, if you work in an education department, you think this isn't happening, please let me know, 086 000 2032. Tommy on the line from Greytown. Tommy, hi, good morning. Greytown, KwaZulu-Natal, right?
Good morning, a very good morning to you. I'm a bit concerned. I was listening to the person you invited to reflect on the yesterday cost back between the ANC and the IEC.
Yes.
And I'm concerned because I think the lady is using the prisons or the political lens on a legal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it is a very distorted version. This is what is happening. The ANC went to court because, in terms of the law, you've got the right to travel on the road. All of us have got the right to travel on the road, keep left and pass right when it is safe to do so. Why do you do that? It's because as you exercise your right, you must not interfere with other people's right to travel on the road.
Right.
Now go to the bill, go to the section 2 of the Constitution, which is the supremacy of which is the supreme law of the land. It confers to all individuals, to all legal persons, a right to freedom of association. Right to freedom. So now the ANC, in terms of the law, is a juristic person. It has a right. Part of the right is the right to legal object. In this case, right to intellectual property.
Yeah.
So the MK, it was named by Chief Albert Ntuli in 1960 when he said, in as much as I'm a Christian, but if a degenerate comes and attacks me in my home, I'll stand up and defend and stand up and take the spear and defend my crown and my family. So what was there? How did the ANC lose? The ANC lose not on merit, lost on the procedural aspect. The law is divided into two. There's a merit, there is a procedural law. So then the ANC failed to petition IEC itself as a requirement. It in its own internal mechanism to then say, no. These people must not use this name because it interferes with the right to intellectual property. But they did not do that in time. That's why the court then said, in terms of jurisdiction, you're not supposed to be here because you did not start on the IEC. So it's a legal matter. It's not what that lady is saying. And I think it's important that when you choose the people who come and analyze there, it is important that you appreciate the nature of the issues. Not to bring politics on a legal matter.
Well, look. I mean, there are lots of different ways of looking at all of this. Tell me, you seem to know a lot about it. Do you work in political or legal or union circles or something like that?
I'm a law student. I'm the member of and the leader of the ANC, the former mayor, and currently in the SALGA National Executive Committee.
No, I thought so. All right. No, I thought it might be you. Thank you. I appreciate your view. Thank you. Tommy on the line from Greytown there, and of course holds many other roles, as you know. Look, there are lots of different ways to look at it. I mean, you can look at it legally, you can look at it politically as well. Seretse on the line from Limpopo. Hi. The issue of teachers and buying posts. Seretse, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Steve. Steve, this issue of posts being sold or teachers buying jobs is very prominent in Limpopo, especially in Mopane, where I'm staying. And you see, the problem is the transaction is not on paper. It's verbal, and it will be difficult to prove that. But now, let me give what happened, which made us to know that these people are selling jobs. One circuit manager, in fact, it is done by the circuit managers. One circuit manager is sold a promotional post for 15,000 to a teacher. And unfortunately, I don't know what happened during the panels and so on. That teacher did not get that job. Then he went back to the circuit manager to say, I want my money back. And and the second manager could not pay or did not want to pay, and he was reported. I'm telling you, the second manager was dismissed in a disciplinary hearing, but the district manager took him back because the second manager was good in terms of results. You know, now this is what is happening. The promotional post for these first teachers who are first entering the industry.
Yeah.
They can't get jobs because they must pay 15,000. Promotional must pay 15 to 30. You see, but it's impossible. It's not easy to find them. Yes, it is prominent in Limpopo.
All right, Seretse, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Okay, so more explanations, and now we've had from KZN, we've had from Limpopo. We were talking about Northwest earlier. If you have a view on that, if you know something about it, 086 000 2032. Clifford, I do see you. We'll come to you in a few moments.
When TP Mazembe and Petro de Luanda collide, the vibration will shake the city of Lubumbashi in the DRC and the capital city of Angola. This is the first leg quarter-final contest of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game, TP Mazembe FC versus Petro de Luanda FC on Saturday 30 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Remember to tune in tomorrow when we'll be announcing the name of the winner in the Outsurance Easter competition. Even if you've missed the deadline for entries, Outsurance could still help you uncover possible savings on your car insurance. If they can't beat your current premium, ask for 500 Rand. Claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for 1,500 Rand. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Just gone 7:45 now, the time. Let's go to Clifford on the line from Cape Town. Clifford, hi. The issue of teachers, good morning.
Hi, good morning. It's just such a tragedy that we've got so many, literally hundreds of thousands of university graduates that can't find meaningful jobs. I've been in graduate recruitment now for 16 years. And I just want to shout out to all those, especially people who've completed a BEd or a PGCE. Please get in touch with me. I've got dozens and dozens of positions. They are overseas. They're public school positions with the Korean government.
Clifford.
Conversational English.
Clifford, enough with the advertising. I appreciate.
Well,
I appreciate.
These people, do you really want them to flip burgers at Wimpy? These guys, the qualifications that they've paid for, they worth over 33,000 Rand a month. So please, Gold Key Education, if you're a graduate and you can't find a job that's going to pay you at least 30,000 Rand a month, get in touch with me. I'll get you on an aeroplane before.
All right, Clifford, I'm going to have to stop that there, I'm afraid. We can't do things in that way, unfortunately. And I understand why you do it now. Maybe there's an argument for it, but I can't let you do it. I don't think, I'm afraid. Sorry, Clifford. I appreciate you taking the chance in a sort of strange way. All right, more calls coming. We'll talk about MK and the ANC in a moment as well.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
Lots of issues around higher education at the moment, and particularly the deregistration of these colleges. We heard earlier from an expert in the sector talking about what had happened, and of course this is all because Damlin, because Lyceum, and because City College have not submitted their financial statements for 2 years. The Higher Education Department saying that these colleges have to help students transfer to other colleges. Veli Mbele is the spokesperson for the Department of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. Veli, good morning. I appreciate the time. It's not that easy for students to transfer. Is the department able to actually help in this?
Yes, good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners as well. You are certainly right, that under normal circumstances, this is not even something that the students should be dealing with, right? And this is why, actually, if you study the regulations that govern the private higher education space, it is incumbent upon the institution that they are registered with to facilitate their alternative places of study in case of a cancellation. And this is what the obligation that the EduCore group has. Yesterday in the media briefing, the minister made the offer and specifically stated that as the department, we are willing to even assist the EDUCO group in helping find alternative placement for the students that have been affected. However, for that to happen, the EDUCO group, right, the leadership thereof, should be willing to also work with the department for this to happen. And from our side, we have not seen that willingness from their side, right, to help us this thing, assist the students. And this is one of the things that we are stuck with at the moment. There does not seem to be a willingness on the part of the EDUCO group, right, to help us find the solution, because there are many other things. There's also the issue of reimbursement.
Yeah, sure.
So really, the other issue of students having to complete some of the modules, right? So we need to have a discussion with the EDUCO group actually to help the students, and it's a matter of priority. It has to happen as a matter of urgency.
Okay, so I completely agree with you. No one's going to disagree with you on that. My concern is that this group is in financial trouble, right? I mean, that's clear. If they haven't submitted the financial statements, we've all seen this movie. You want them to help? Of course they must. But can they? Hasn't the money disappeared? I don't mean it's been stolen. I mean, it's just that the company doesn't have the money. They might want to help, but can they? Do we know?
Those are legitimate questions. But you see, if they are not talking to us or even talking to you, right, as the media, to say, we've heard what the department said yesterday, we are now responding. We don't even have that, right? And we can't know those things unless they talk to us. The minister has made the offer, and I've always emphasized this, that notwithstanding the decision we've taken, we want to talk to them so that we know what the actual problem is. Is there no money? Is there no capacity? Because we can only be able to help if we have the actual information. And to just also give you an idea, since this has been announced, we have been inundated with queries from students, because one of the frustrations that the students have been raising is that they are not responding to the concerns of the students, right? And we have urged our unit that as and when we receive concerns from students with regards to reimbursement or their qualifications, we must do our best as a department to respond. And the unit is working, unceasingly on trying to see how best we can assist, with the hope that the EDUCO leadership is going to come to the table. So as the department, we are not going to stop trying to find a solution, right? We are really going to do as much as we can, as difficult and as complex as the situation is.
No, I can see it is difficult. Veli, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Veli Mbele is the spokesperson for the Department of Higher Education, Science and Innovation. 9 minutes to 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Here's one to avoid. There's been a crime scene. We understand it possibly is a cash in transit heist incident. It's on the N12, the Potchefstroom Highway. It's pretty much halfway between Klipspruit Valley Road and the Golden Highway, and there's a heavy backlog both ways. Police are on the scene, at least one vehicle on fire down there. So if you need to go between Lenasia and Joburg, just think about a reroute through Soweto. Soweto is open this morning, or you've got the option of going down sort of Nirvana Drive out to Aikenoff and up into Joburg that way. Plenty of options to the north and to the south to avoid the N12 Potchefstroom Highway and that unfolding crime scene that we've got down there. Fairly heavy on Joburg's N3 today from Germiston all the way through to Modderfontein Road. The N1 stays busy between Old Joburg Road and New Road. Of course, it was all heavily backed up with a broken down truck, but that scene has been resolved. Just looking at fairly heavy volume of traffic moving along the M1 through Midrand. Durban's M2 stays heavy between the M7 Bluff exit and the roadworks just north of Spaghetti Junction. M13 queuing out of Pinetown into the roadworks at Paradise Valley. That backlog to around St John's Avenue Bridge territory. Cape Town, the M5, pretty busy today between Rondebosch and the busy Kuburg interchange area. N7 passing Lunga, going north up Jake Scoville towards Viking Way is slow. And the big backlog out of Tableview, unusual this morning, that you'll be stuck on the Bloberg Road. Marine Drive is clear if you want to get out of Tableview. Go that way this morning. If you take Bloberg Road, gets it from Wood Drive all the way down to Kuburg Road, and behind that Gee Road's quite heavy as well as you come out into that traffic on Bloberg Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Yanga have a massive mission to dish out orders in Dar es Salaam against 2016 champions. However, Masandawana believe in their ability to succeed anywhere on African soil. This is the first leg quarter-final encounter of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. Young Africans versus Mamelodi Sundowns on Saturday 30 March at 8 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Attention filmmakers, are you ready? It's time to showcase the vibrant tapestry of KZN's cultural heritage at the Simon Mabuno Sabela KZN Film and Television Awards, South Africa's ultimate celebration of cinematic excellence. In partnership with the SABC and KZN EDTA, we champion innovation, paving the way for the future of cinema. This year we go beyond imagination. Cut edit your 1-minute submissions because a call for entries is now open until the 28th of March 2024. For more information, visit www.kznfilm.co.za or follow us on our social platforms. Join the conversation using hashtag SSA24. KZN Film, our kingdom is your stage.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
6 minutes now to 8 the time. We will try and take as many calls as we can. We have plenty of people wanting to talk about MK and the ANC. I'm sorry we haven't had a chance to hear from you on that, but we will try and hear from you on 086 000 2032 in a few moments. First, new figures from the Crop Estimates Committee, which predicts how much food will be harvested in South Africa, shows that the total maize harvest for this year could be down by, listen to this, down by 20%. Compared to last year. And mostly this is because of the lack of rain compared to what we've had in the past. As you know, we had already 3 years of La Nina rain. Now we have the sort of heat of El Nino. Wandile Seklobo is the chief economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber. Wandile, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. When you look through the figures, how bad is it? It looks very bad.
It is quite bad, Stephen, and I think many people haven't realized perhaps maybe the damage, because you recall that at the start of the season, there were excellent rains across South Africa. And in fact, farmers this year planted more area than they planted the previous season, which shows then that there was a bit of optimism. And I think things continued fairly well up until the end of January. It is from the beginning of February where we did not receive any of the rainfall. And at the time, we needed rain badly in that farming in South Africa, because that's where the crop goes to pollination or flowering, which is where all the grain formation happens. So since then, there hasn't been any rain, which is why the figures that were released yesterday, they showed that we may be down by roughly 20% if you were to compare us to the previous season, with, of course, a harvest of around about 13.2 million tons. That's still tentative, because if then the weather conditions remain the way they are, we see more risks.
Will we be producing enough food for our own needs, for everyone in the country? I know we import and export food. That's the way the system works. But will we have enough food for ourselves?
As best as we can tell with the information we have, Stephen, it does appear to us that we will be fine for ourselves. And in fact, we may be able to even assist the neighboring countries like Botswana, Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland. And within the maize story, Stephen, as you'll appreciate, it's also white and yellow maize. Yellow maize, we use it mainly for animal feed. White maize is the one that is for food. And white maize, we grow it in the western regions of South Africa, the likes of Western Free State, Northwest. And these are the areas that have taken much more beating from this heat wave and the dry weather conditions, because even from the start of the season, there wasn't as much rain in the Northwest, like, for example, you saw in Mpumalanga and in KZN. To an extent then now that if you compare between white maize and yellow maize on a year-on-year decline, you realize that white maize is actually seeing a sharp decline of about 25% from the previous year, while yellow maize is at 13%. So our worry is primarily that white maize side, and also from a regional demand perspective.
Normally on this show, Wandile, as I think you'll know, I often have to use the phrase, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not a climatologist. But if we are in an El Nino season and we don't have much rain because of it, do other parts of the world that produce maize get more rain, and do they produce more as a result, or does it not work like that?
It certainly does work like that, Stephen, because if someone were to step out of South Africa and you look at the world, in the world, there's a lot of maize. In fact, our friends at the International Grains Council, they recently released their estimate saying the world has about 1.2 billion tons of maize, which is up 6% year-on-year basis. But the problem with the maize that is in the world is that it is yellow maize. I would say a guess estimate of about 95% or even more of the globally traded maize is actually yellow maize. Now, South Africa's problem is not only for us, but also the region. And in fact, here at home, we're still sitting at a better position compared to what Zambia is going through, where they have lost roughly half of their crop. Zimbabwe, it's the same story, and other regions, in other countries in the region. Now, the problem that they sit with is that even if we want to import maize from the world, we may find that it is only Mexico that produces white maize at a significant volume. All of the other maize that is out there in countries that have received good rain is largely yellow maize.
Okay, so if we look at all of this, I'm presuming, I hate to ask this question, but I'm presuming that next year food price inflation, well actually this year, food price inflation is going to start to rise again, just when it was beginning to come down?
I think we will see a rise in particular products, because if you think about maize, vegetables, and if you think about vegetables and meat, you'll see that those product prices may actually moderate. The wheat products prices also may moderate. Of course, I'm assuming here a stronger rand. But with the maize-related products, particularly white maize products, that's where we are worried on. This is all to say it will depend on what the consumer puts in their basket. But the overall mix is going to be a bit of a mixed up. And the unfortunate thing is that on the staple foods like maize, it's the one that we see that there is a risk. Already, if you look at the South African maize prices, white maize is trading at 1,000 rand higher than the yellow maize, which shows that disconnect. So the basket will be mixed, but staple products, particularly maize related, we fear that those prices may be elevated later in the year.
Wandile Seklobo, thank you. Chief Economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber, really appreciate the time. You're with SAFM leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, ANC and MK party back in court today, and Nelson Mandela Bay Metro upgrading hits a snag. Good morning. We start with election news. Members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic that the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. The ANC is claiming that these are part of its heritage and intellectual property. MK head of elections in KwaZulu-Natal, Musa Mkhize.
It's only trademark that belong to Umkhonto weSizwe party. Nothing else, nobody else. We don't know anything else. We never stole it from anybody else. People need to focus for the legal. It's left for them to steal. Yep. For the legal, it's left for them to steal before the 29th of May. Unfortunately, we'll be ready to pay the bills, to pay for the expenditure that was not authorized, that they're still doing now, to take over what is left for the people of this country.
The state is expected to argue against the bail application of 5 men accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and his friend Tibelo Tibbs Mutswane were killed in Durban last year. Police announced the arrests last month, saying an elaborate operation was put in place to kill Forbes. 2 more suspects are being held in Eswatini, awaiting the outcome of an extradition application. Dries Liebenberg reports.
In a sworn affidavit, the alleged orchestrator of the hit, Mzwithemba Kwabeni, admitted to receiving 800,000 rand, but has indicated that it was for legitimate work by his company. So far, several of his co-accused have indicated that they have been assaulted by police, forced into confessions, or that their families have been threatened. Lindani Ndimande said in his bail application that 4 of his siblings have been killed by police, and that the suspects being held in Eswatini fled because of this.
The upgrading of informal settlements and infrastructure in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape have hit a snag. National Treasury has cut the grant funding to the Metro by more than 171 million rand due to underspending. The two affected allocations are the urban and informal settlement grants. In the current financial year, the Metro only managed to spend close to 40% of the Treasury grant, this after setting a target to spend more. Nelson Mandela Bay Mayor Gary van Niekerk says a plan of action is in place to address this matter.
We need to commit that money. We need to put projects in place. We need to sign off on it. Once that money is committed, it's not that projects will all of a sudden start now and be finished by the end of the financial year, which is June. That's not the idea behind it. We need to commit that money, sign contracts, and put it in place so that that money will be spent. It's committed. That's what you need to do. And our guys are working feverishly behind the scenes to ensure that this money does get committed and spent.
Meanwhile, opposition parties have blamed the underspending to a lack of planning from the coalition government. They say this will have a negative impact on service delivery in the city. Democratic Alliance caucus leader Ratief Odendaal and UDM councillor Luxolo Namate elaborate.
What we have in Nelson Mandela Bay is a dysfunctional council led by a dysfunctional coalition government. That's why the funding can't be spent.
As a party, UDM, we are very disappointed, and we are saying to the current coalition, this is unfair to our taxpayers' money. Taxpayers of Nelson Mandela. So we are disappointed, and we are saying that this current coalition is incompetent.
The Information Regulator South Africa says it's concerned about the amount of political parties who are not fully compliant with the Promotion of Access to Information Act. The organisation says it assessed about 14 political parties represented in Parliament and other municipalities, and none of them were fully compliant. The regulator has been conducting a number of investigations into the compliance of the Protection of Personal Information Act and the Promotion of Access to Information Act by political parties, the IEC, government departments and JSE-listed companies. The Information Regulator's Executive Director for Education and Communications, Mukulani Dimba, elaborates on their findings.
There are certain requirements that they need to fulfill in compliance with the legislation. They need, for example, to have what is called PAIA manuals, which is the document that, as a member of the public, you would look at to see what kind of information the political party holds and how can you access that information. We found that in instances where they need to keep a list of all their donors in terms of the Party Funding Act, they need to keep a list and make the list available. We also found that there was general non-compliance with that requirement as well.
Recapping the top story, members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your Sunrise Sports headlines, cricket, young Karabo Mizo makes a historic debut for the Proteas women's squad, becoming one of the youngest ever at just 16. And on the tennis front, 34-year-old Victoria Azarenka powers through to the Miami Open semi-finals. Full details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, JMPD now confirming the N12 is a cash-in-transit heist crime scene event. So this is the Potchefstroom Highway between Cliffsred Valley and the Golden Highway. I understand the westbound side going towards Protea Glen is currently closed, and motorists will be taken off at the Golden Highway off-ramp. So if you just normally do that commute or you want to avoid the closure and the very heavy traffic, you've got options coming from Protea Glen. You'd go up through Soweto. Coming from the Lenasia side, you just simply route out Nevada Drive and then up the Golden Highway or around sort of Aikenoff. There is a crash at Aikenoff, by the way, so there's a little bit of extra traffic there. But north and south of the N12, the routes are pretty much open, and will get you through that area without queuing and getting Court and all that big mess that is unfolding on the N12. Joburg side, the N3 up to Gilooly quite slow this morning. N1 south through Midrand stays busy between Old Joburg Road and a point halfway between Olifantsfontein and New Road. The R21 still queuing to the airport, not as bad as it can be, but if you're running late, there is a backlog of traffic approaching Clayville into the roadworks. Durban's N2 remains heavy going north this morning from the sort of Spaghetti Junction territory up through the roadworks towards Umgeda Road. And Cape Town, if you're coming out of Tableview, you might want to reroute away from Bloberg Road. It's a really big backlog heading down towards the refinery, down towards Kuberg Road. It's about a 20-25 minute delay to get out of Tableview. Backlogging to Wood Drive. Gee Road is very heavy coming from Tableview, trying to join into that traffic on Bloberg Road. So Marine Drive would be the preferable option. It's pretty clear this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 minutes after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. All right, lots going on this morning. We've been taking quite a few calls about this issue of the selling of teachers' posts, and people saying they've seen it happen. And I'm sure we'll be met with denials from everyone, but people saying they've seen it happen. And this is the thing, isn't it? How do you sort of prove this kind of thing, and how do you deal with it? Quite difficult. Also, of course, MK and the ANC very much for the moment the sort of dominant issue of this election. I don't know if that'll change or not, but let's just see. Calls coming through on that this morning on 086 000 2032. We'll look at leadership in the private sector and leadership in government after 8:30. Are there differences or are they not? I think it's a really interesting question. And are there differences around consequence management? I think there's an interesting question there as well. Lots to come. It's 9 after 8.
Blue and Gold Army are happy with their performance in the DStv Premiership, and they want to triumph against Gold and Black to stay in the top 5. However, Amakosi want to bring back Injabulo to the Kosi Nation. The Citizens battles it out with the Glamour Boys. Catch Mzansi's beautiful game, Cape Town City versus Kaizer Chiefs, on Saturday 30 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
When South Africans think security, they think Trilidor. With 6 months interest-free financing and over 54 franchises around the country, you can always find the security product and price that's right for you. Visit trilidor.co.za or call 0861 Trilidor today. Trilidor, the ultimate crime barrier.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
All right, 10 minutes after 8. Good morning. Rantisa on the line from Sekhukhune. Hi. The upcoming elections. Good morning. Go for it.
Yes, SG, the upcoming elections. And then good morning to yourself, good morning to our listeners and your producer level. You see, Stephen, also our tribute to the member of the SFM who's going. Then I think we'll make sure that tomorrow morning we participate to say, go well to Matlake. You see, Stephen, Raymond Matlake. Stephen, you see, I just want to raise my issue about the Mkondo Sizwe and the ANC. I think the previous caller is quite correct. The case yesterday was not lost based on the merit. It was just based on technicality because, you see, the name MK, it belongs to the ANC. Even if we can invite Jacob Zuma himself in the studio just to talk about, give the history of the Mkondo Sizwe, we'll never mention the history of Mkondo Sizwe without mentioning the ANC because it's where it belongs. But then we were just shocked when the ANC waited for that so long before it can take to court. They could have done a little bit earlier. But then my concern, it's around the possibility of the ANC tipping below 50%.
Yeah.
You see, our concern, Stephen, is not particularly about the ANC as the ruling party or the liberation movement. I'm raising this concern as the citizen who love this country and it's got nowhere to go after the South African government collapsed. And I'm saying this as a poor person
or who dependently on government and government services, starting from the health, education, everywhere. Because when I look in my own family, Stephen, and other many people around in my community, there are most of them chronic patients. They rely on day-to-day treatment that they must collect.
So Rantisa, you're worried about coalitions? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm worried about coalition because I can see that no one's going to save us.
Yeah.
I listened to Provincial Premier here in Limpopo talking about Tabazimbi municipality, where it's under coalition that put ANC outside. But when you listen to the Premier, because at the municipality is better because they can intervene as the provincial department and assist the NEC Makamu can intervene. But at a national level, when you have the coalition that is failing, who's going to intervene?
Yeah.
Because even the IEC, I don't think IEC will have the budget for rerun election because everybody will be saying this one is worse than ANC. Let's go for rerun. We'll have the budget. We'll not have. Get someone from Tabanzimbi, get someone from Ekuruleni. We'll tell you that this thing of coalition, when it's not working, who's going to assist us? It's better to say, as the media, let's encourage that among the opposition party that are able to come with a formidable opposition to the ANC. When the ANC begin to do things that we don't agree, then we can remove the ANC and put alternative. But for now, we don't have alternative. We are adapted to the ANC. For the next few years, we must make sure that we develop an opposition that is going to be a replacement to the ANC. But for this election, 2024, replacing the ANC is going to be a very big mistake that we will be doing as a nation.
All right, Rantisa, thank you. Look, as the media, we can't encourage anyone to vote for, well, certainly as the public broadcaster, to encourage anyone to vote for any political party. We'll encourage you to vote full stop, finish and club. But I hear the point that you're making. I know you're not the only one who believes that, Rantisa. There are arguments against that as well, I must just say. Tabiso and Polokwane, hi, MK. Are you voting for them, Tabiso?
No, Stephen. I wouldn't. But Stephen, what I wanted to deal with was, you remember a day ago, one of your callers, like we normally do, said that there is a judgment that he is seeing on WhatsApp groups.
Yes, it was Vusi. And I haven't been able to find out if that was the same judgment or not. And this is the problem. Something can go on social media and say, this is the judgment, and you don't know.
Yeah, I know Vusi. He's very vocal when it comes to these things of MKP. Yes. And I would want him to call again and apologize to the people of SAFM, and in particular to the judiciary. You know, when a person calls into in the radio, equivalent of this nature or any other radio, small or big, people must not, just pick up things on the street and start raising them here. Because someone is listening somewhere for the first time listening to SAFM and might end up believing that particular person and saying, no, there was a judgment. And I think those are matters that must actually be dealt with at
Well, look, Tabiso, I don't know what he saw, and that's the problem, is that I don't know what he saw. But Tabiso, I hear you, and I try and, encourage everybody to sort of stick within the lines of the debate, but it's not an easy thing. Tabiso and Polokwane, thank you. Nigel in Durban, hi. The death penalty, is this because of the ATM?
Yes, that's right, Stephen. Thank you. Morning. It's fundamental. What the ATM wants is deeply ignorant and fundamentally illogical. It's ignorant in that the stats show that the death penalty is not a deterrent. The killer in his or her mind at the moment of killing just has the desire to kill as an act of revenge against a perceived enemy, not the possibility of being killed in return by law. And it's fundamentally illogical in that if killing is wrong, how does killing the killer show that killing is not wrong?
Right, yeah.
Even if the law says it can happen, justice isn't served, Stephen, by the death penalty. It's an act of, on the part of society, an act of revenge and retribution against a perceived enemy of society.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know this argument goes in many different directions. I do have my own personal view about it, but I mean, I also don't see how the ATM would change the Constitution.
Yes.
All right, Nigel on the line from Durban. Thank you. On the line from Durban, I do appreciate it. Prince on the line from Mpumalanga, the ANC and MK. Hi, Prince.
Morning, Stephen. How are you?
I'm well. Go for it.
Good. I just want to comment on the ANC versus MK issue. Because personally I don't understand what is ANC argument. because ANC formed MK in 1961.
Yeah.
And then they had the military wing. In 1993, they disbanded the MK, saying we don't need this armed struggle anymore. So it's fine. MK is disbanded. Then they come and say, it's fine for those soldiers who were in the MK, we're going to accommodate you as MKMVA. So they joined ANC as MKMVA. 2021, ANC divorces MKMVA again. They say we disband MKMVA. We do not need you anymore. I think they wanted to combine it with MKNC or something like that.
Yeah.
So they divorced them again. So in other words, they did not want a MK anymore. So now that there's a party called MK, now they want it again.
So Prince, I understand that argument. Can I just be difficult for a minute and say, why does MK want to be called MK? Do you see what I mean? I mean, why not call yourself something else?
But if we were in the struggle, Stephen, if we were in the struggle from, let's say, the likes of Mr. Hani and all those guys who were with them, in the struggle since 1961, and then they were on the military wing of the MK of the ANC, and then they were not consulted. Remember in 1993 when they were told that we're not going to need you guys anymore, so they were just told that we are disbanding MK and then that's it.
But then would that say that I mean only Jacob Zuma, as far as I know, was a member of MK and is now a member of the party? If you see what I mean. I mean, wouldn't it mean that more people in the leadership of the Umkhonto we Sizwe political party would have to have come from Umkhonto we Sizwe, the armed wing?
But it's like a home for them now, because remember, even in 2021, when they said, now we don't need you guys again, so they had to get a home. I think President Zuma and Mr. Kumalo did a good job in creating a home for those guys, because those guys were neglected by the ANC. They were taken out of the ANC. They needed a home. So now they have a home, even though they are not part of the ANC maybe now. But if you look at what they are saying, they still say they are still part of the ANC. It's that they just needed a home outside the ANC for now because they are not taking care inside the ANC.
All right, Princeton and Mpumalanga. Interesting argument. Thank you very much indeed. Do appreciate it. 19 after 8.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, figures yesterday, the quarterly employment statistic from Stats SA, slightly different to the quarterly labour force survey, they show that employment in the formal sector dropped. We lost 200,000 formal jobs in the period from September to December. And this is particularly because there's a big decrease in part-time employment. Koketso Mano is a senior economist at FNB. Koketso, good morning. I know we've kept you on hold forever. I really appreciate the time.
Good morning, Stephen, and hello to all of your listeners.
It's a bad thing to lose formal jobs. Why have we lost so many?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the data, it seems as though many of those jobs were in community services. So that would fall broadly in line with, phase 4 of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative that came to an end in the third quarter of 2023. So that drop in employment would probably have reflected most of that.
Okay, so it's just one initiative that was stopped that led to this figure.
Yes, seemingly.
Sure. We see, obviously, there's a difference, as I understand it, between this and the quarterly labour force survey, which also includes the informal sector. And when we measure them, we need to be sort of quite careful what we're measuring. But in terms of trends, what are we seeing in the formal sector? Are we seeing jobs slowly going over time? I mean, nobody says to me that the economy is gaining jobs strongly.
Yeah. When we look at the QES data, especially relative to the pre-pandemic period, so end 2019 specifically, then you'll see that we've actually added about 400,000 jobs, or 3.9% compared to that period. So there has been a recovery. And we're seeing with the latest data that SSA has published with the updated sample that, we're now experiencing a full recovery in employment since the pandemic shock. So there has been a recovery, but you're so correct when you say in terms of the broader economic climate, the weak economic growth, weak investment does not bode well for robust employment creation. I mean, just looking at the QES total employment level, you're looking at around 11 million people, or just below that. For QLFS, when you include the informal sector, so your households, informal economy, as well as your agricultural economy, you will see that that number is just below 17 million. We're sitting in a country where the census has confirmed around 60 million people. The situation is dire. We do need a more robust economic growth, at least of 5%, in order for us to arrest the situation around unemployment.
There's also having a job and income, and in Europe and the United States, this is a big issue. They've got historically low unemployment in places like Britain and the US, but people's income, their actual lived experience, has gone down because inflation has gone up. Are we seeing a similar thing here with people who still have jobs, in that their income is not keeping pace with inflation?
Definitely. I mean, when you think about real incomes, just that fourth quarter number where you're looking at overall average monthly salaries, those are up only 1.6% quarter on quarter and 2.3% year on year. We know that inflation in 2023 was at the highest since 2009. So the inflation, impact, as well as the broader cost of living impact when you include high interest rates. Say, for example, if you fall into another tax bracket because tax brackets have not been adjusted with inflation, all of that does impact your disposable income. So whether you're looking at it from a real wage perspective or just the amount of money that you have to spend at the end of the month once you've paid all your bills, that is definitely showing cost of living pressures for the consumer.
I mean, what we've rarely seen, we can look at it in lots of different ways, but over the longer term, I suppose, from probably the beginning of the global financial crisis, so call it 2009, maybe 2010, or maybe a little bit later than that, GDP per capita, in other words, the amount of money, if I've got the phrase right, the amount of money each person has to live on, has basically gone down over that period, over quite a long time.
Yeah, actually, we were not doing too bad in the 2010s. And you're right, in terms of the growth or the improvement that we would have seen in the standard of living or people's share of the economy has not been doing great. I mean, if you think about the 2010 decade, for example, that's a lost decade in South African terms, where we only had about 1.3% economic growth on average. That's well below what we would have had the decade before, for example. So the missteps in terms of policy implementation have not been very helpful. And we see it in those matrices when you think about the standard of living that people have. The pandemic then happened in 2020, and that took another dip when it comes to GDP per capita. We have seen it recovering, but at these levels that we're currently at, we're looking at people experience of the economy or their share of the economy having regressed to 2006 levels. So we've lost a lot of time in terms of the economy, and unfortunately the population continues to grow. The situation is not very tenable.
Grootes Mano, thank you very much indeed. Senior economist at FNB. Very sobering picture emerging, of course, of the longer term trends. 24 minutes after 8.
When TP Mazembe and Pedro de Luanda collide, the vibration will shake the city of Lubumbashi in the DRC and the capital city of Angola. This is the first leg quarter-final contest of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game, TP Mazembe FC versus Pedro de Luanda FC on Saturday 30 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Get your payments done with the utmost security and convenience when you purchase a TV license now. With our new secure payment systems with a one-time PIN OTP feature and the choice of receiving your OTP via SMS or email, you can ensure prompt and secure payments. The additional use of capture will protect you against spam and automated data attractions. With TV licenses, you can enjoy watching all your favorite shows or movies that matter to you. Get yours today. Visit www.tvlic.co.za.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Just got time to hear from Innocent in Durban about expired goods in shops. Innocent, hi, what have you seen?
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, Stephen, go for it.
Thank you for taking my call for the first time in SAFM.
Welcome.
Yeah, I always listen when people are talking about expired goods and blaming it on the spazzers. But here in Durban, I actually have a problem with the acids. So to reduce the acids, I always buy soda water.
Yeah.
Soda water. Imagine in Durban, I'm in Bel Air, the Bel Air's whole township of Bel Air.
Yeah.
all the soda water has expired. Some of the shops, they are rubbing the printed the dates for expired date and leaving it in the shelves.
Sure. And you say all of the shops. How many shops have you been to? 3, 4?
At Bel Air, I've been into 5 shops.
Right. And they've all done the same. Is it the same brand of soda water that they're selling?
Yeah, it's the same brand. The one, the Schweppes. That's the only soda they are mostly there. Then I moved to Seaview. I went to another shop. I found same story expired. There is another one in Bluff. They are using another type of soda water. I don't know where they are importing it from. All expired. I had an argument with the lady there, and after I bought it, I thought it's a soda or it's the right soda. When I'm drinking, I feel there's something wrong here. I checked the date, it's expired. I went back to say, how can you sell me something expired? I asked for the owner. She said, no, you can phone him. He's overseas. Overseas bringing expired things. But the blame is on the municipality. Why are they not inspecting the shops, the goods?
Yeah.
Why are they sitting?
I don't know if
where are the health inspectors?
Yeah. No, Innocent, thank you on the line from Durban. First time caller to SFM. Appreciate it, Innocent. Such an interesting question. Soda water, I don't know if it's dangerous if it's expired, but that's not the point. If there's an expiry date, the shop should stick to that. Innocent, thank you. 28 after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Proteas women.
They're in action today. T20 series against Sri Lanka, 6 p.m. tonight. The current series, the last competitive cricket for the Proteas women before the T20 World Cup in September and October. Now, the Proteas women captain Laura Wolford excited to have 16-year-old Karabo Mizo in the squad. This is her maiden international call-up. The wicket-keeper batter was included in the tournament team after the 2023 ICC Under-19 Women's T20 World Cup, following her impressive performance behind the wicket.
Yeah, she's a very exciting young player. She's a lot younger than I thought she was. She's still only in grade 11, which is crazy. But yeah, she's been at 1 or 2 camps before where I've seen her, and it's been awesome to see how she goes about her work. She's very talented for how young she is, and it's very exciting to have her around the squad. And yeah, it would be great if she gets a game or 2, but even if she doesn't, just to be around the group and to learn as much as she can, I think will be great for her cricket moving forward. And yeah, we're very excited to have her around the group. She's been great so far.
In the meantime, Anrik Nokia setting the record straight despite being left out of the Proteas men's contract list. Nokia is not retiring from international cricket. The fast bowler shifting his focus solely on T20s, aiming for a spot in the upcoming T20 World Cup. After recovering from a back stress fracture, Nokia is eager to return to the pitch, currently gearing up with the Delhi Capitals for the IPL season. Tennis action, Daniil Medvedev taking another step towards retaining a title for the first time in his career. The Russian third seed beat Germany's Dominic Kufer 7-6-6 love to reach the Miami Open quarterfinals. Top seed Carlos Alcaraz advancing to the quarterfinals. He had a win over Lorenzo Musetti. And Alcaraz will face the number 11 seed Grigor Dimitrov after Dimitrov beat the number 8 seed Hubert Hurkacz. And finally, 2-time Grand Slam champion Victoria Azarenka defeated Yulia Putintseva to make the semi-finals. It's the second time that the 34-year-old Azarenka has made it to the semi-finals this season after going that far just once in 2023.
It's pretty awesome that my son can go and take pictures next to me with the trophy. You know, it's extra special, and I'm just happy that after all these years, I'm still excited to go out here, put on the show, and motivated to continue to compete, to go after my dreams. You know, I've played on tour for 20 years, and I still feel like I'm improving. So that's priceless to me, and I really, very grateful for this opportunity. I want to continue to keep going.
More sport on SAFM comes around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Also feel like I've been on tour for 20 years and still improving. Zai, thanks very much indeed. You're with SAFM leading the conversation 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, political analyst Andre Duvenacher says the ANC's candidate list, which consists of members who were implicated in the State Capture Commission report, reflects negatively on the party's stance on corruption. The Electoral Commission has released party candidate lists for public comment and objections. Members of the Umkhonto weSizwe party in KwaZulu-Natal say they are optimistic the High Court in Durban will rule in their favour today. The ANC is challenging the party's use of the MK logo and name. And the president of the European Council says the bloc's support for Ukraine will remain unwavering in spite of what he described as lies and intimidation by Russia. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A couple of heavier areas in central Pretoria this morning. Madiba Street towards 20 House is closed. There is a bit of protesting and demonstration going on there, so that's just causing a backlog around that part of Pretoria CBD. And there's been a big fatal crash on Pretoria Street coming inbound through Arcadia, so there's a lot of traffic disruption as motorists have to sort of hit some alternative routes around that crash and around the closure of Pretoria Street in towards the city centre area as well. Cash and Transit heist closing the N12 between Eldorado Park and Lenasia. The road closed between Klipsray Valley Road and the Golden Highway exit. There's some heavy pressure on the N12. It's a Potchefstroom Highway as you approach those closures coming in from Protea Glen or heading off the N1 at Deadman's Bend down towards Protea Glen. All very heavy. You might want to reroute through Soweto or reroute down along Nirvana Drive via Aikenhoff as your alternative routes just to keep yourself moving and avoid that closure. Given the nature of that scene, it will be closed for some time. Durban's M13, Westfield through Sherwood, quite busy this morning. A breakdown between Ashburton and Linfield Park on your way to Durban, still causing delays. And Cape Town's N1, fairly busy. It's easily the busiest highway around town from Goodwood Parow all the way through to Elevated Freeway, and Bloberg Road remains heavily backed up. If you're leaving Tableview, better idea to avoid Bloberg to Kuberg, go out on Marine Drive instead. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The Blues are looking for nothing but victory to cement a decent top half position.
Mudryk takes over. Mudryk's through. Mudryk round the goalkeeper. Oh, it's fantastic.
But the Clarets need full points to step out of the uncomfortable zone.
Come on, Jakob. Jakob Brun Larsen scores. Burnley. Perfect penalty. Keeper went the right way. Too much on it.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest between Chelsea FC and Burnley FC on Saturday, 30 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Digital television offers clearer picture quality, more free-to-air channels, all SABC radio stations, irrespective of where you are in South Africa, and much more. A gradual analog switch-off continues and will be concluded by the 31st of December 2024. Installation capacity has been ramped up to fast-track installation of set-top boxes to eligible indigent households. Hashtag Chincha Ungasali, hashtag Go Digital. For more info, send a WhatsApp message to 0600 625 458, call 0860 736 832, email support at centec.co.za, web chat www.centec.co.za, or Facebook Messenger at Centec Ltd.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
It's 25 minutes now to 9 the time. Good morning. So over the last few weeks, one of the questions and themes that just come up in our conversations here on SAFM Sunrise is whether people and leaders in the government sector and in our politics are treated differently to people in the private. So, for example, in the private sector. So, for example, I've used the example of whether the CEO of a private company would be allowed to remain in office or in a position of trust if serious claims were made against them. And yet, it seems to appear that often in our politics, when claims are made against someone in a senior position, they're able to stay in office. So, is this a perception or is it true? If it is true, why does it happen and what are the consequences? First this morning, you'll hear from Dr. Kingsley Makobela, a director at Risk Recon, an analyst and a former ambassador. We'll ask the question, is it true that people in politics and people in the private sector are treated differently? Then, Bayani Zwane is the CEO of Breakthrough Development. We'll ask about the consequences when leaders are not held to account. And finally, Professor Peter Goss is a professor of practice and corporate governance, forensic auditing and investigations at the University of Johannesburg. We'll ask him what happens when leaders are not held to account. We start then with the former ambassador, Dr. Kingsley Makobela. Mr. Ambassador, good morning and thanks for your time.
Hey, good morning, Stephen.
Do you believe it's true that political leaders, or let me put it differently, that leaders in politics and leaders in business are treated differently? When claims emerge against them, are they treated in the same way or are they treated differently?
Stephen, let me start by really taking this quote that I forgot who really penned it. that ethical conduct means doing the right thing right. Doing the right thing right, not doing the right thing, but doing the right thing right. Now, having said that, the private sector operates totally different. The private sector, most of them, they set up very high ethical standards because of the pressure by shareholders who really demand results, even for performance, demand certain ethical behavior and doing this right thing right. In the public sector, we often conflate legal processes and political decisions. What do I mean by that? Is that, for instance, if a minister is found to be involved in serious allegations that are putting the government in disrepute, you often hear people saying, let the legal cause take its rightful decision. But they forget there's also a political decision that the political head, in this case the president, has to take. Because it's not disciplinary hearing for members of the executive, any minister. It's not disciplinary hearing. And that's why it's the prerogative of the president to appoint, not only to appoint, but to appoint and fire. So that's why you find very often decisions in the public sector are very long procedures, and they take large sums of money. We've seen the report of the Auditor General now and then indicating officials who are on suspension paid for years because nothing has been done. But also in the public sector, at the officials level, disciplinary processes are often weaponized to deal with those who are seen to be recalcitrant, those who are seen to be non-compliant with, for instance, a host of issues, including corruptions and so on, who take a certain stand. That's where the big problem is. But the private sector, if you work for Company X, you are a CEO, you are seen to have violated, they would hire lawyers to do investigation within short space of time, to pump resources to investigate and take action. Because the longer the process takes, the more the share price is affected. And that's why they're able to take a decision. Is the share price affected when the private sector? Of course, the confidence is affected. And that's why you find this dragging and loss of confidence in government because processes take long. Because the ordinary voters become despondent in the process. And that's where politicians are unable to manage.
Do you think we're different to other countries? Do other countries act against politicians or people in the political space when there are questions of them? And Mr. Ambassador, I'm trying not to think too much about Donald Trump when I ask you this question.
Let me give you, there's an example, Stephen, that Matt Hancock, who was the Minister of Health in the United Kingdom, in 2021 violated the COVID regulation by kissing an aide on the chin. And he resigned because of that violation, because there was supposed to be no contact during that time. Here in South Africa, Stella Ndabeni was alleged to have been involved in some dinner thing in violation of the same COVID regulation. And what happened? She was given 1 month suspension without pay. So it tells you that the bar in terms of holding politicians to account has been set very low. And that's where the big challenge is. The more you set the bar very high, it's the more actually you are likely to get people behaving like this. I give you another example, Stephen, that the diagnosis is good, but the system that is prescribed to deal with the problem, it's wrong. Ethically, it's wrong. For instance, there have been a lot of political killings in the country, particularly in KZN. The president appoints a ministerial committee to deal with that. But if you look at Salga report of 2019, it defines this political violence as political rivalry, factionalism. Are you doing the right thing right? No, he's doing the right thing by appointing investigation, but he's doing it wrong by appointing the very same people who are involved in conflict. Ethically, it's incorrect to do that. The police are supposed to do this investigation without any interference. That's where the question of ethics comes from. Because if you appoint people who are actually the one who are alleged to instigate this political violence, you're unlikely to find a solution. And that's why maybe we are not nipping this thing in the bud. It's keeping now, between now and the next election, we see a lot of people being killed. Ethically, it's wrong to do that in my own view.
When this happens, so when a person may be leading an institution, maybe a person holds a senior position in an SOE or something, when there's no action against them, what does it do when people are not held accountable? It must have a big impact in lots of different directions.
Of course, it affects confidence in the institution. Take, for instance, there's one thing that we need always to draw a distinction, Stephen. A political space is very polarized. Politicians are quite quick to call each other to resign. I think the only president who was there was no attempt to impeach, it must have been President Mbeki and President Mandela. But all of them, there's been an attempt to impeach them, ministers to resign and so on. If there's an allegation against a minister, I think it would be incorrect to rush to fire him. The president has to look at the political process while the judiciary process is taking its course, to make a determination, indeed, if there's anything. Take what the former CEO of ESCOM said about ministers who are involved making R1 billion. And then I hear the president saying, well, I don't care about what's going on. The law enforcement must take it. But as a political course that I think the president ought to look at the evidence that is provided and say, is it plausible this may have happened? And if he's convinced, because the bar there is not the presumption of innocence, it's the political act that he may have put government in disrepute. And he can take a political decision on that whilst the legal process is taking its course. So we often conflate the political process and the legal process, and we refer everything to the legal process, and hence you're seeing the terminology in the political discourse and the legal discourse about the Stalingrad tactic, because these people have a lot of resources to really drag the legal processes for years, and yet the confidence in government is going down. People are starting not to respect the laws, and so on. It creates a huge problem for the credibility of the state.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you. Dr. Kingsley Makobela is a risk analyst and a CEO and a director at Risk Recon and a former ambassador. You're there, SFM, 17 minutes to 9. Continuing your mediated conversation. Is it fair to say that leaders in our politics and leaders in the private sector are treated differently? Boyani Zwane is the CEO of Breakthrough Development. Boyani, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Very good morning to you too. Thank you very much.
If there's a person in a leadership position and claims are made against them and there are no consequences, what does that do to that person's ability to lead, to make decisions, to lead a team?
Well, most important thing is that in leadership, trust is central to everything that gets done. So when there are actions which clearly indicate violation of trust, in the sense that what people were expected to be able to deliver on and they're not delivering on, and the senior leadership is allowed to carry on without doing things that are building up the organization itself, clearly that is hurting to the organization, that is hurting to the people that report into them. There's got to be consequences. Every choice we make has a consequence attached to it.
It must have consequences in other ways too. So if someone in a division is accused of something and is seen to sort of get away with it, other people in another division of the same institution will do the same thing. In other words, it can sort of spread, maybe?
It definitely does, because what doesn't get done to somebody who has committed something that is contrary to the rules, contrary to the regulations, contrary to the policies and procedures, if nothing is done to them, everybody else begins to say, well, I need not follow the rules at all. Pretty much like happens as we see more and more people crossing the traffic lights. If no one takes action in there, it begins to become the norm that people just pass through the traffic lights without caring about whether it's a zebra line or anything else.
In our politics, if senior leaders have a claim against them and nothing happens, does it affect all of our politics? I mean, I sometimes wonder if things that happen in one party affect another party too. And so what you end up with is that if, various parties, 3 or 4 parties of people with claims against them, all of our politics sort of becomes kind of infected by this.
It certainly does, but at the same time, it creates more and more parties that are formed around the factor that something was not done. I mean, if you look into many of the new parties that have been formed this year, I mean, we're going to be having well over 50 people to vote for, 50 parties to vote for, vote into Parliament, provincially and nationally. Much of that came through because of the non-action, primarily from the president, primarily or following into that from the premiers, as well as the mayors of the various structures. What ends up happening is that many people begin to see for themselves, well, nothing gets done, I can do something, I also can carry on, and it ripples throughout the whole nation. And as a result of that, we begin to find ethics mean nothing, accountability count for nothing, responsibility is lost, and the nation degenerates, unfortunately.
How do we change this? How do we make it unacceptable for someone to stay in office if they have serious claims against them, no matter where in our society they are?
We've got to be tough. We've got to be tough on misdemeanors. I mean, we know fully well that Singapore set a tone for us way back, 50 years ago, when they began to be able to have with Lee Kuan Yew that you get to be seen fraternizing with somebody in the private sector when you are a public servant, you get fired on the spot. You come back from a holiday with somebody in business, you get arrested at the airport. That sends a message throughout to everybody else, you're not supposed to be able to do this. Unfortunately, we've been very, very soft on matters that require stern and decisive action. What we really are needing to be able to have is not to rely so much on the law, but get more and more of human practice. We said, Batupili, what does that mean? If we don't care about people, we are Batupiling just for the sake of using the word. It's vital that we demonstrate. We often say lead by example, but bad example is an example. We need to be straightforward in terms of ensuring that the actions we have are the ones that we would like our 5-year-old niece, nephew, cousin to be able to emulate. If we can't do that, then we're failing.
Buyani Zwane, thank you. CEO of Breakthrough Development, really appreciate the time. In a moment, your mediated conversation will hear from Professor Peter Goss. It's 11 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
ES Tunis plan to disallow their visitors any breathing moment, but ASEC Mimosas remain extremely hungry for maximum points on the road. The North takes on the West. This is the first leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis versus ASEC Mimosas on Saturday, 30 March at 11 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Tell us about why the state has decided to oppose the bail of some of the applicants, because others have already indicated that they're abandoning their bail.
The incidents that were happening outside court and what we've heard and read about, the anger of that community, we don't think it will be safe for them as well to be released on bail. It will be in their interest as well not to be released on bail at this stage.
At this stage, it would be in their interest as well. Is it because of the fear that the community members could turn on them?
Aldrin, if you go, you are in that court, my brother. There are like hundreds of people outside the court building. They are very angry people. last week, but I think about 2 weeks ago, when the other three appeared, there was a huge fight and stone throwing between the community members and the police.
Spokesperson for the NPA in the Western Cape, Eric Ndabazalila.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A crime scene south of Joburg, CN12, Potchefstroom Highway. The road is closed going westbound from the Golden Highway exit at Eldo's through to the Klipspruit Valley Drive exit. So with that closure, there's a lot of pressure on the N12 down towards the closure of Golden Highway and a lot of pressure on Nirvana Drive as motorists work their way down the Golden Highway onto Nirvana Drive through towards Trade Route Mall. Also the N12 coming from Protea Glen open, but quite heavy backlogs in towards that crashing on your way through to Joburg. Separately, a lot of traffic diverting through Aikenoff, and there's a crash there as well on the R82 at the Aikenoff crossing, so a lot of congestion that side of town as well. Collision on the M1 North at New Road. If you're just beginning a trip up through Midrand direction Pretoria, that's very heavy. And the roads in front of Chwani House, well, Madiba Street in front of Chwani House is being closed this morning due to a protest or demonstration in front of the municipal building, and that's just causing a bit of a backlog around that top end of central Pretoria. If you're Durban bound this morning, coming out of Pietermaritzburg, a stationary truck earlier around Linfield Park, still causing a pushback from the Ashburton area. And the M13's been heavy, queuing from around about sort of St John's Avenue through towards the M3 works at Paradise Valley. Cape Town's N1 is the heaviest highway this morning from Century City over the elevated freeway to the city centre. And traffic lights on Bloberg Road at Kuberg Road have been playing up, and that's why there's quite a heavy delay leaving Tableview towards the refinery side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
Continue your mediated conversation this morning around the question of whether leaders in the sort of public sector and the private sector are treated differently when claims are made against them. Professor Peter Goss is a professor of practice and corporate governance, forensic auditing and investigations at the College of Business and Economics at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Goss, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen.
I wonder if we're being a little too kind to the private sector. I mean, is it true to say that companies act when claims are made against leaders?
Yeah, Stephen, it's so difficult to sit on the fence about this one. Companies act faster. Companies act more decisively. The system governing companies called corporate governance, driven by shareholders and diverse stakeholders, moves fast. Let's use two cases, Stephen. Two cases. Right around, just behind us now. The PhD scandal of Thabi Leoka. Stephen, 4 unconnected companies, Remgro, MTN, Netcare, Amplats, within a blink of an eye, Thabi Leoka resigned from those 4. Trust me, it wasn't left to her moral compass alone. There were pressures from within. Number 2, let's take the converse, the Speaker of Parliament right now, even claiming that she cannot be prosecuted, literally. I mean, it's laughable that they're so above authority, politicians in South Africa, that they believe that even the prosecuting authority needs permission to prosecute them. So what we fundamentally lack is in the political governance arena compared to the corporate governance arena. The material stakeholder in political governance is not loud and hard and harsh enough when these politicians are mischievous or engaged in corrupt activities. In the private sector, we move overnight. Yes, large scandals like the Steinhoff scandal and its complexities, matters are somewhat delayed. But look at the public impact on Steinhoff. Look at the number of fines imposed on Marcus Jooste. Look at the number of actions taken in relation to Steinhoff and compare them simply to the arms deal. Compare them simply to the Pusasa scandals. Compare them simply to a simple matter like Dutumyeni's matter that's taking so long. Compare them simply to the Eskom former CEO matter. And you realize there is no accountability. There's no desire to apply accountability. Politicians are above the law and they lead each other accordingly. Stephen, that's my summation.
We've been talking about politicians in the private sector, but we also have state-owned entities that are sort of in the middle. So these are organizations that are run like companies. They have CEOs and they have boards and they have chief operating officers. But they're also the boards are appointed by politicians. Do we find in SOEs, and I suppose there's plenty of examples of this, where there's no consequence management in SOEs and there's that sort of interplay between politics and what's supposed to be corporate governance?
Beautiful point. So a politician in corporate governance, for example, a minister, say in the Eskom context, a minister is what we call the shareholder of Eskom, okay, a politician. However, that minister in South Africa seems to misinterpret his position as the shareholder. He's not a shareholder. He's a proxy for society as the shareholder. So the general public is the main shareholder. He sits there as a proxy for us. But when he or she sits there as minister, they seem to misinterpret that being shareholder means they literally are like the Peter Goss, the shareholder in a public company holding shares. They are a proxy shareholder representing the wider public interest, and they don't act accordingly. A shareholder in a normal context in a publicly listed company has what we call shareholder activism. This minister, this politician that sits as the shareholder of a state-owned entity does not himself have the accountability compass. What is leadership in this context? Leadership is first and foremost being personally, individually accountable. If you're not, you won't hold others to account. Leadership is knowing that you should stand down because you represent the public interest and you're tainting the very organization that you should be protecting by staying in office. You cannot sit as a Speaker of Parliament while you're awaiting a corruption investigation, including an imminent arrest, and bravely sit in front of our Parliament and represent us in the world and need to be told by other systems and civil society to step down. You should just naturally step down. It's not about you. It's unfortunate that now your name is dragged into corruption. And I suspect very few of us have our names dragged into corruption by mistake. Our names are dragged into corruption because we're associated with transactions.
How difficult would it be to change all of this? I mean, and I suppose, you know, one of the things you talk about shareholders and companies, the shareholders of government are voters, really, I suppose. But I mean,
exactly.
And everyone talks about the sort of culture of corruption, which we may or may not have. How do we change it?
We simply have to go back to what is in place. We have accountability systems that abound. We need to find a system that confronts politicians on the spot. And unfortunately, they themselves need to implement that system. We need no more policy, no more rules, no more preaching about ethics and integrity. We simply need to apply Parliament's ethics code. We simply need to apply the law when somebody's accused of corruption, like we would for Joe Soap on the street. We simply need to act and remove you from office, suspension or otherwise, in the event of a corruption case against you. We don't need a step down or stand aside policy from some political party. We just need to implement the existing rules. Stephen, I'm loath to recommend new systems. We have enough in place. All we need is leaders who act.
Professor Peter Goss, thank you so much. Professor of Practice and Corporate Governance, Forensic Auditing and Investigations at the University of Johannesburg. My thanks also to Buyani Zwane, CEO of Breakthrough Development, and starting us off today, the former ambassador and risk analyst, Dr. Kingsley Makobela, also an expert in managing things. So, yeah, interesting discussion in a way around what happens in government, what happens in the public sector, what happens in the private sector. We'll be back tomorrow. Ray Mchlaka's last day with us tomorrow, unfortunately, but we'll say goodbye to him as well. We'll do your story of the week tomorrow as well, because it's Friday on Thursday, if you know what I mean. From Mdu, from Stanza, from Zelma, myself, Melissa, look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, crowds gather ahead of ANC MK logo matter and EU confirms support for Ukraine. Good morning. We start with election news. Crowds have started to gather outside the Durban High Court for the matter between the MK party and the ANC. The ANC is seeking an interdict against the MK party, challenging the party's use of the logo and name. The ANC is claiming that these are part of its heritage and intellectual property. SABC reporter Kenny Mapanga reports from outside court.
They have concerns rather that if ANC voters were to see this logo and this name, it may deceive and confuse them into thinking that this party is associated with the ANC. So they'll challenge this quote-unquote infringement and ask the courts to interdict this party from the use of the name and the logo. Of course, the MK party will be opposing this application, first on the issue of urgency, saying that this matter could have been brought to the courts from at least May 2023.
Political analyst Andre Duvenage says the ANC's candidate list, which consists of members who were implicated in the State Capture Commission report, reflects negatively on the party's stance on corruption. The Electoral Commission released party candidate lists for public comment and objections. The lists will be available at the Commission's national, provincial and municipal offices between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. today and tomorrow. The IEC has also announced that more than 14,000 candidates have been nominated to contest the 887 seats available in the National Assembly and the 9 legislatures. Duvenage says the ANC list is not on the same level as the list presented before 1994 elections.
My concern is people like, for example, Elvin Boertes on the list. You saw the name of Sisi Kotwa. We know there were serious concerns about Gwedi Mantashe. There was a lot of rumors recently about Paul Mashatile, and these people are all accommodated within the systems the one or the other way. I am missing elements of strong leadership. I am picking up stronger political loyalty.
The state is expected to argue against the bail application of 5 men accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes in the Durban Magistrates Court today. Forbes and his friend Tibelo Tibbs Mutswane were killed in Durban last year. Police announced the arrests last month, saying an elaborate operation was put in place to kill aka. 2 more suspects are being held in Eswatini awaiting the outcome of an extradition application. Dries Liebenberg reports.
In a sworn affidavit, the alleged orchestrator of the hit, Mzwithemba Kwambeni, admitted to receiving 800,000 rand, but has indicated that it was for legitimate work by his company. So far, several of his co-accused have indicated that they have been assaulted by police, forced into confessions, or that their families have been threatened. Lindani Ndimande said in his bail application that 4 of his siblings have been killed by police, and that the suspects being held in Eswatini fled because of this.
The High Court in Polokwane, Limpopo will this morning hear the bail application of 2 prominent businessmen and their 2 accomplices convicted of murder and kidnapping, amongst others. They want to be granted bail after appealing their sentences in the Supreme Court of Appeal. They were handed prison sentences in November last year. They were found guilty of killing Ronnie Magatu for ritual-related purposes in 2006. The victim had been kidnapped and reported missing in Soshanguve, north of Pretoria. The victim's bereaved family say they need his remains to give him a decent funeral and find closure. Kokecho Mutau reports.
The businessmen Marcus Magatu and Joshua Hlaku were found guilty and were each sentenced to 22 years imprisonment for murder, 7 years for kidnapping and 4 years for defeating the ends of justice. Their accomplice Kumbole Mabirimisa has been found guilty of 2 charges and sentenced to 22 years for murder and 7 years for defeating the ends of justice. The 4th accomplice, Amanda Magatu, has only been found guilty of kidnapping and sentenced to 7 years imprisonment. The convicts want to be granted bail pending their appeal process.
The President of the European Council says the bloc's support for Ukraine will remain unwavering in spite of what he described as lies and intimidation by Russia. He also expressed his solidarity with the families of the victims of last week's devastating attack on a Moscow concert hall, but said it was regrettable that the Kremlin was trying to link the attack to Ukraine.
This is once again regrettable to observe how the Kremlin is trying to use this situation to lie. They try to use all possible rhetorics to try to explain why they've decided to launch this terrible war of aggression against Ukraine. And this a stupid and absurd narrative we cannot accept.
Recapping the top story, crowds have started to gather outside the Durban High Court for the matter between the MK Party and the ANC. The ANC is seeking an interdict against the MK Party, challenging the party's use of the logo and name. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
ES Tunis plan to disallow their visitors any breathing moment, but ASEC Mimosas remain extremely hungry for maximum points on the road. The North takes on the West. This is the first leg quarter-final battle of the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis versus ASEC Mimosas on Saturday 30 March at 11 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Did you know that government has set a minimum amount for employers to pay their employees and workers? In 2018, the National Minimum Wage Act 09 of 2018 was passed in South Africa. It makes it compulsory for all employers to pay employees and workers a minimum wage. In 2024, the national minimum wage for all workers, including domestics, farm and forestry workers, is 27 rands 58 cents per hour. The minimum wage for workers on the Expanded Public Works Program, EPWP, is 15 rands 16 cents. If your employer is not paying you the national minimum wage, please contact a labour inspector at a labour centre near you. The Department of Employment and Labour, working for you.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
When I grew up at Umlazi Township during the dreadful apartheid years, my loving parents, both working class, one a civil servant, a staff nurse, and the other a factory worker, would never let us go to bed on an empty stomach. I personally experienced neither hunger nor poverty and was saved from the indignities of unemployment and their concomitant suffering. With their meager wages, they shepherded us, their children, both to church and to school, as though those were the only two institutions through which we could escape the daily ravages of the system. Notwithstanding my parents' heroism, they couldn't cushion me from apartheid inequalities, which meant that I was destined to be disadvantaged relative to my erstwhile privileged compatriots. That I thrive today, and that I wish to believe I'm destined for some significance, it is largely because I refuse to carry a chip on my shoulder, realizing that if I did, then it could dent my chance of success in a globally competitive business environment, which is complex, and which in any case largely believes that it owes me nothing. My parents did what they had to do, and for that I'm eternally grateful. However, one person's complex journey of success cannot be explained solely by faith, good parenting, and choreographed snippets of libertarianism. Our challenges as a society are very complex, and in attempting to deal with them, we cannot escape the responsibility to look at matters collectively and more broadly. Simply put, to deliver a crushing blow to deep poverty, runaway unemployment, and widening inequalities in our society as a whole, and to add to that pervasive corruption, then we need to look up to the collaborative powers of all of business, government, and society.
That is the voice of Sandile Zungu. He's a businessman and also owner of the AmaZulu Football Club. It's 10 after 9 o'clock. Welcome to The Talking Point. I'm Kathy Motlatlana. Looking forward to what will come up in the next 3 hours of The Talking Point. And of course, what makes it ever worth the while is your company. So looking forward to being in company with you and in conversation. Welcome Coming up on the show today, we'll kick it off with the open line, as we always do. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. It's going to be quite a busy day. We've moved really from what is one court case to now another. It seems, the ANC's firefighting efforts are continuing today. This time it's going to be in Durban. And it's all about who owns the spear. It's about who owns the spear, right? Who owns the logo? MK veterans. And ironically enough, I see that a lot of media houses have positioned this as the Battle of the Spear, and it's a copyright infringement case that is being heard in Durban. The ANC accusing the MK of illegally using its logo, a logo it believes that it is entitled to a logo. It's alleging that it has trademarked, including the name MK. But of course, coming out of some of the court papers that they've already filed is an argument, at least by the MK, that they'll be putting is around the position of the spear, right? That actually, if you look at both logos closely, the position of the spear is not the same. And therefore, they're arguing that the ANC cannot say that this logo is stolen. In fact, when I was reading on part of this last night and this morning, it made me think about the Brett Murray matter. Remember what happened with the Goodman Gallery and the spear painting? Of course, that also was around President Jacob Zuma. Of course, in a completely different context. But yeah, it seems that the Battle of the Spear then will unfold in Durban. I know lots of you want to talk about that. I think at the heart of it is really a copyright infringement case that the ANC is hoping to successfully bring against the MK. Today is the start of those proceedings. So it's not the judgment as we had yesterday with the Electoral Court. Happy for you to, you can talk about that, whatever other issues you want to put on the national agenda. 086 000 2032 would be the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. And I suppose because we are in election season, right, for both parties, one wonders, whether a case like this causes distraction from the work of campaigning, from the work of, being able to, again, try and win votes, which is really what 29th of May is about. It's about trying to get as much votes as possible. Did the ANC leave it too long? Are they now on the back foot and finding that they're trying to control something that is already like a runaway fire? I wonder what you think of that. Well, coming up on the show today in the second hour for Citizens Corner, we're going to be looking at the issue of election polling. You would have seen recently, every week, there seems to be a new poll, and all of them are claiming different things. So who's going to, win the elections, and who's going to get what percentage of the vote in what is happening in the region. So there really is a lot of information for us to try and process and make sense of. But of course, there are also serious concerns and serious questions that need to be asked about the credibility of some of the polling. Why must we take it seriously? And often, of course, some of the surveys come with a disclaimer that say this is not an election prediction. It is a snapshot of sentiment at a particular time, from a particular group of people. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean that it doesn't make headlines. So we'll be focusing specifically on the issue of election polling and how we as the electorate then can better understand the use of these polls and perhaps how to interpret all of the mixed messaging that we often will get from polling. The final hour of the show, we're going to be looking at the Alderman Trust, the South Africa Trust Barometer, for 2024, and this is a survey that it's research rather that has been conducted for 24 years now, and they've been studying the issue of trust within societies. There's a global index, and then of course they zoom into specific countries. And in South Africa, we're going to be looking at what some of the findings there are. Unfortunately, what part of what this research has shown is that we continue to see declining levels of trust in government and in the media. And it is really a cause for concern, and we'll understand what then is informing these declining levels of trust by the general population in these institutions. That will be the final conversation of the day at 11 o'clock. Okay, in a moment, I'm going to be taking your calls on the open line. Remember, it is your national roundtable, your opportunity to set the agenda. And of course, you literally get to set the agenda. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm back with your calls.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The Blues are looking for nothing but victory to cement a decent top half position.
Mudryk takes over. Mudryk's through. Mudryk round the goalkeeper. Oh, it's fantastic.
But the Clarets need full points to step out of the uncomfortable zone.
Come on, Jakob. Jakob Brun-Larsen scores. Burnley. Perfect penalty. Keeper went the right way. Too much on it.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest between Chelsea FC and Burnley FC on Saturday, 30 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Coming up on the book reading.
In passing, I must observe that I have witnessed in real life and much more on user-generated pornographic sites, white men who commit the most horrendous sexual acts against white women, acts that I suspect are never reported as violence or misogyny. Observing this unremarked violence, I have wondered why white women love white men who violate them, denigrate them, sexually abuse and exploit them, who basically disrespect them, minimize their achievements, and are ungrateful for the care they receive from them.
Catch the book reading on SFM Monday to Thursday at 11:45 on the Talking Point.
Digital television offers clearer picture quality, more free-to-air channels, all SABC radio stations, irrespective of where you are in South Africa, and much more. Gradual analog switch-off continues and will be concluded by the 31st of December 2024. Installation capacity has been ramped up to fast-track installation of set-top boxes to eligible indigent households. Hashtag Go Digital. For more information, send a WhatsApp message to 0600 625 458. You can also email support@sentech.co.za or visit www.sentech.co.za.
I would like to speak as a friend. Nosiviwe and I met in the struggle in the African National Congress, in particular in the ANC Women's Section and later Women's League. Nosiviwe's integrity is intact, and South Africa will get to know that. What is very sad, which is expressing itself, is how people that work in sectors that are very critical in society comply with and cooperate with agendas that you can only regard as, people who have lost sense, who have lost their ability to think straight. Now, I'm saying the sad thing, though, that is being proved as one watches what's going on, is how people who work in sectors like the one you work in also learned their skills to pursuing agendas that can only be described as despicable and dirty. That's all I want to say.
Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for good times and bad times. I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, let me kick it off in Norwood. Temba, good morning.
Okay, how are you?
Good, thank you, Temba.
I'm also fine. I want to speak about 2 points. First, I want to speak about that guy. Who's that guy who shot himself?
Marcus Juster.
Yeah, Marcus Juster.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, my sister, as a country, we were undermined. It was an undermining for our country because they can't report that somebody is dead. He shoot himself. No one see his body. No one say anything. We don't know where's that guy. We don't know about his funeral. We don't know nothing. I think that is not something that we should allow as a nation. We have a story that someone is dead because he was facing this and this, and then it's quiet like that. No one saying anything about that. I mean, like, where have you seen that thing, my sister? It's not normal at all.
But the family obviously also want to keep it quite a private affair, and much of the reporting, Temba, coming out of that part of the world has been that he wasn't exactly everybody's favorite due to the scandal around Steinhoff, and it does look like a huge part of the community had cut him off, and so even where he's said to have died, nobody went there to lay flowers. Nobody sort of gathered there and talked about what a loss it was.
I also feel down because I think media, it's your job as a media to investigate and tell us, even to invite the Home Affairs, the reverend stakeholder to tell us that guy died when, this certificate, all of these things. We need a confirmation. Where is that guy? He's really dead.
But Temba, the police are the ones that have confirmed. They confirmed his death, yes.
Yeah, if the police confirm his death, it's fine. Invite a Home Affairs, even Harold Mutwaledi. He must come to the radio and tell us, would that guy, they issued the death certificate for that guy, where we want that information as a public. It can't be business as usual, and then we just let it go like that. And then we expect everyone to forget. Next time when I'm charged, I just tell people I'm dead, and then I go to somewhere else. This is not a banana republic. They mustn't do that. They must tell us, okay, let's move there. I want to speak about the MK, né? My sister, you see, on the issue of the MK registration and the trademark, whatever, those things they are fighting with the ANC. Let me say this. MK was a political wing of ANC. And as far as my memory takes me back, there was no registration for MK party. Now it's an MK party. It's not a political wing. No one registered that name. They abandoned it. So I don't know why ANC are causing this chaos. They want to follow it because they must concentrate on the election, on the campaign, everything. But they are now taking MK left and right to court. Like, I mean, they abandoned that thing. It's very clear that they didn't want anything. They didn't want. They're not recognizing that thing. So why is that today they're claiming for it? Because the moment they're pushing those guys, I'm telling you, my sister, you remember.
But Temba, when you say that they abandoned it, in what ways do you believe the ANC abandoned the MK?
I don't know what was the reason. Maybe they can explain better. But what I know is that they abandoned it. And when you abandon it, it seems you don't know, you are no longer recognizing that you don't want anything with that associated with that thing. So, another example, if you are my mother...
Abandoned or disbanded, Temba? Which one is it?
They are abandoned with my sister. They are abandoned. They are no longer wanted. They are no longer owning that thing. They are no longer.
Look, I've been hearing that argument, that says that the ANC abandoned the MK. I don't know. I don't know that that's a fair reflection. Yes, there've been issues with the military veterans and how they've been constituted. There've been big leadership battles within it, but I don't know that it's correct to say that the party abandoned, the MK.
The MK.
Yeah.
It's true. They abandoned it because if you say you own something, you have something to prove that you own that thing. It's yours. It's registered somewhere else. They never registered MK. They never. It's only that they used to have the MK as a political wing on the side, and it was underground that thing. That is why Zuma has the right to register as a party. Because let's say you are my mother and you have kids. The other kid is saying using your name is also a right because you are mother. Also Zuma, he was there on the MK. There's nothing wrong about MK.
Okay.
They just want to cause a chaos. There's nothing wrong because after that, my sister, let us be honest. If the court finds it somewhere to say that thing belongs to MK and it must be registered, deregistered, and whatever, do you imagine what is going to happen in the country? And we don't want that situation, my sister.
All right, Temba out in Norwood. Let's leave it there. Look, the case today is about the use of the name and the logo, the registration of the party. That matter has been settled. I wonder what the worst case scenario in this instance would be. Maybe if the ANC won, the MK would have to change its name, maybe even change its logo. But I think we're still very far from that. We have to hear what the arguments in court today will be. Jackie, you're in Kempton Park. Good morning.
Good morning, Jackie.
Yes.
Yes, Jackie, I need to talk issue of the deregistration.
Yes, you want to talk about the deregistration of EduCore entities? Oh, Jackie, the line to you is terrible. We're going to try and redial you on a different line, but maybe let's stay with that EduCore matter. Anonymous, you're in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Joseph. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I'm Keso now. Just a comment in passing. Anytime and every time I hear anyone talking anything positive about ANC, I just feel like kicking. There's nothing else left for them. But anyway, I wanted to put in a comment about the EduCore Group brand higher institution shutting down some of their divisions. What they have just done cannot be undone. Can you just imagine a parent who had applied for a student loan, sent a child, let's say, from the remote areas to the most affluent cities in South Africa, paid accommodation for them. It was just their first year. And then now they have to hear this. With so saying, it just gives me another thing of, it could be possible that universities fail to disperse NSFAS allowances as a result. You might find that in actual fact they do not have finances in their system, so they would wait for NSFAS to pay, run their operations with student money, and then later when they have generated interest from their bank, then that's when they can start distributing.
Yeah, Anonymous, the private institutions are not funded by government. So
yes,
NSFAS does not cover any of the fees for these institutions.
Yes, that I understand. With Minister saying that it has been 2 years, a private higher education not submitting their financial statement, you just get to ask you, like, the person responsible within the department, what were they doing in that 2 years? They do not receive financial statements, and this college keep operating, they keep generating money from student paying fees, but it is nothing wrong. I just feel like the executives of that group should be banned to never participate in any form of higher education in future, because I can tell you for free that those executives are now plotting how are they going to start up a new brand, or how are they going to be absorbed by other private or even public institutions.
Anonymous, you make such a good point. I think it's unheard of that the Department of Higher Education can be the one that says that it hasn't been able to get a hold of these individuals. It doesn't know where they are. And that seems to be the end of it. How is that even possible? And you remember, we did quite a lot on the EduCore group earlier on in the year. In fact, much of that was triggered by some of the students that called into the open line to tell us about what was happening. And one certainly didn't get the sense from the department and the DG who came on that this was an issue that was taken seriously, despite it being raised by students for close on 2 years. So they were relaxed in dealing with it completely.
Of course. I remember that call very well when a student called in complaining about Daniel specifically. So you see, be that as it may be, just last guest on Steven's show talking about lack of accountability. And then we might as well assume this will be one of them. EduCore we will be demolished, and then a new brand will resurrect from nowhere. Same executive with same modus operandi.
All right.
Continue to generate profit. But anyway, let's go to headlines. Thank you.
All right, much. Anonymous, let's leave it there. It's time for the latest news headlines.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, Limpopo police say 4 people have been shot dead in taxi-related violence in Zebediela outside Libuahomo. This brings to 5 the number of taxi operators killed in the area so far. Crowds have started to gather outside the Durban High Court for the matter between the MK Party and the ANC. The ANC seeking an interdict against the MK Party, challenging the party's use of the logo and name. And political analyst Andre Duvenage says the ANC's candidate list, which consists of members who were implicated in the State Capture Commission report, reflects negatively on the party's stance on corruption. The Electoral Commission released party candidate lists for public comment and objections. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Good morning, Kathy, and your fellow listeners. Let me teach you the people of this country. The owner of the Umkhonto is the late King Shaka. In actual fact, him as well, he doesn't own the spear. The person that owns the spear is Ucucu. And people need to be educated about this. I thank you.
Good morning, Kathy. The ANC fighting the MK is just a waste of time. Why do they fear having competition? Now it looks like a PSL game where a home game team was played in Joburg. Now it's a away team that MK is representing Natal, then they to take the match to Natal. The other thing about ANC, it has run out of ideas. We can see their campaign now that you have to download an app for Sanral to fix pothole. Really, towards the ANC, towards the election month, what are they really fixing? Instead of apologizing and reorganizing their structure. Thank you, Brandma by Protea Glen. Thanks for the great show.
Good morning, Kathy. I'm Svito from Guatemala in Springs. In your show yesterday, there was a caller who called and distorted the meaning of the name Jacob. He said the name means the one who's protected by God. He's lying. Actually, the name means the conniver, deceiver, and the thief. Exactly describe Jacob Zuma exactly. he mustn't come here and try to spread his gullibility, because he even said that Jacob Zuma is the hero that we all need to go and join. We cannot join Jacob Zuma because everything that has Jacob Zuma's hand in this country becomes a mess. Thank you, Katie.
Hashtag SFM Talking Point.
You're listening to The Talking Point. It is still the open line, the National Roundtable. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032. I must say, I didn't foresee a situation where the debate around the interpretation and meaning of the name Jacob is where the conversation would lead us to. And it started off yesterday with one of the callers. And since then, we've been getting all sorts of messages here and there of people who are fighting and arguing about the meaning of the name. When I checked it online yesterday, I know very, very credible sources on Google, it means both, right? So it doesn't look like either interpretation is wrong, but are we really going to be sitting here debating the meaning of the name? No, man. Jackie in Kempton Park, you're back on the line. Good morning. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Katie, and thank you for taking my call.
Yes, it's much better now.
Thank you. Katie, I want to talk about this deregistration of these colleges. For me, the first thing that I'm going to say is that now, greedy is the main problem. I once have a friend who was working in one of these institutions. They are making money, but they don't want to pay capable people. Then they end up now employing people who don't know, who compromises the corporate governance, compromises a lot of things. So lecturers are worse. Find that now they don't employ lecturers who are capable. So greedy is the main problem. Even other businesses collapse because some business owners, they don't want to employ capable people. They're able to pay them well.
Look, Jackie, in this instance, perhaps part of what you're saying might be true, but what we know is even for the lecturers that had been employed, many of them were having difficulties getting paid. And those are not only issues that started in 2023, they started in 2022. We even reported on accounts of one lecturer that had taken his life. His mother told us, an incredibly sad story of just how depressed he became over some time and ended up taking his life because he just could not take it anymore. And it was due to the dysfunction in the institution, and in particular, a city varsity where he worked. So the problem was there for a long time, and lecturers, students tried to raise concerns, and it all seemingly was conveniently kept out of the eye of the public.
Yes, Casey. Hence, I'm saying that now greed is the main problem, even in many other organizations, because the moment you don't have capable people who are going to look at governance, who are going to look at finances, who are going to look at your stakeholders, the student. My friend who was once been a school principal in one of these institutions, he had to be doing a lot of things, but he ended up being paid. He ended up resigning. I'm talking about over 10 years ago. So what I'm saying, greedy is the main problem, even in many organizations. There are organizations that are good, but greedy and a lack of corporate governance is the main problem.
Yeah, Jackie, I can't disagree with you. Thank you. Because for many of these students, they would have been paying their fees. And with private institutions, if your fees are not paid up, then you're not getting readmitted back into the institution the following year. But what a tragic way for things to unfold, especially for those students that had enrolled in these institutions. Nzikana, you're in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Mshatana.
Yes,
Thank you very much In fact, I intended phoning him yesterday, but he opened with that case, and I thought, gosh, then the whole thing is going to deteriorate into a debate and what happened. The reason I'm phoning is that I listened to your clips when your program starts because they are motivational and they are good. And you started off with a powerful one on Monday. A black child was relating the story of how she felt when she visited a white friend's homes and the